Hello and welcome. Finally, after a little bit of a hiatus, we are back for episode 35 of the Horsemen podcast. And yes, you are not dreaming. We are talking about something a little bit different this week. We are talking top 10 wrestlers. But of course, I'm not alone. Of course, Levi, yours truly, ThrashManiac99's here. And joining me, we got the full gang here. Right next to me on this side, Mr. Raphael Fireblade. Next to him is Ricky Hollermaster, who's finally got internet in his house, not in his car.
Yellow, and it's about time.
Right underneath on this side, from what I'm looking at, even though you can't see him, but the crazy Portuguese bastard Artur Castanha.
Hello.
And then next to him, the always lovely Hannah Klein. Oh boy, but yes, we're doing a different topic. Instead of a metal topic, we're going to be talking about something else that we love, and that's wrestling. Because many of us are huge wrestling fans. Hannah used to be, now kind of getting back into it a little bit. But for the most part...
Same here.
Yeah. But for the most part, we're all big fans of wrestling. And we're going to be talking about our 10 favorites. And they're going to be quite all over the place, I'm going to say. But I figured a good place to begin would be to talk about... God, my voice cracks too much lately. Then again, I have a slight sore throat, which you probably can't even tell, but... Anyways, a good place to start would be how we got into wrestling and where are we at today with it. So I'll start. I got into wrestling thanks to my two older brothers in '98, right in the brink of the Attitude Era. And the first thing I saw, WrestleMania 14, and I loved that show to death. And here I am 22 years later, still a fan, even though I have not watched Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or AEW since March, because to me, wrestling with no fans is pointless, and it just feels very, very weird. Even though they're gradually getting fans back, particularly AEW, but if they could just move out of Florida and go somewhere where this crap cases aren't so bad, then it'd be better off. I mean, hell, look at NASCAR. They're going to be going to Bristol, Tennessee next month with 30,000 people. So, there you go. And also, if it's outdoors, you don't have to worry about masks and all that crap, because if you're outdoors, you're fine for the most part. But it is what it is. I don't want to get into the bullshit with that. But yeah, still a fan of the business to this day, even though... like I said, I have not watched current wrestling in 3 months. I've been watching old shows, hence why on the Shadow Cult channel, my buddy Scott, Walter, and I have been doing old reviews, because why bother talking about modern wrestling and getting pissed off about it when you can talk about stuff you like? Or if you watch something that's bad, you can have fun with it and rip it to shreds in a comedic fashion, which is what we do on the Shadow Cult podcast, but... yeah, perhaps some of these people might appear on a future Shadow Cult podcast episode, maybe. But with that being said, that's my story. Ricky, what about you?
Well, my history of wrestling is quite a lot, because both my grandfather and father watched wrestling. So I was introduced by them to watch wrestling. And my beginnings wrestling starts with AAA, the Mexican promotion. Since I live in the
back soon, right?
What?
I have to go somewhere. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Even though, like I said, I grew up in a town, I would go across a lot, and there was an arena called what was the name of the arena called? Shit, I'm forgetting the name of the arena. Well, anyway, I'll remember. Anyway, I will go every Monday. It was like a 5-year tradition. I would go every Monday to watch traditional lucha libre Mexican wrestling, and I would see some of the greats. Like I got to meet La Parka, I got to meet Abesto Negro, I got to meet El Hijo del Santo. I got to meet El Hijo del Blue Demon. Some of the greatest Mexican wrestlers you can name off. And then after, I want to say 05, 06, I began getting to WWE. And I started people like John Cena, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Triple H, etc., etc. Became more of a WWE fan. And then it wasn't until 2012, 2013 that I got into the New Japan Pro Wrestling stuff, which, my God, that stuff is, God, so good. I mean, and then you got Ring of
That's
Honor.
why I love New Japan.
And then you got Ring of Honor. You got, I don't know, wrestling's been a huge part of my life, even though I haven't watched it as much as I would love to because of the whole virus thing and all that. Like, I still watch WrestleMania. I still watch the Royal Rumble. I still watch Wrestle Kingdom whenever I can because it's too much. Wrestling's so much that you can't watch it in just one day.
All right, Artur.
I started out when I was little because there was on public TV. They used to broadcast some of the late '80s, early '90s wrestling, like Hulk Hogan, Mr. Perfect, and some of those guys first. Then I got into the Attitude Era, although I started to watch also a lot of WCW at the time. I was a bit divided on who I enjoyed the most. Then in 2006 I got tuned out. I got tuned out of wrestling because it was starting to get a whole lot stale. There was nothing else out there. And that was until someone, or when I started to get into What Culture, and Cultaholic, where they said, hey, go watch Wrestle Kingdom. And I did watch Wrestle Kingdom, and it blew my mind away. And suddenly, they also recommended some of the indies, like WXW from Germany, ICW from Scotland, Progress as well. That's how I got back into professional wrestling. And today, I still watch New Japan, now that it's making its return. I tried to watch some of the indie stuff, where I got my love back, and where a lot of those wrestlers are going to be on my list. But WWE, the only product that I can see is NXT. Raw is getting stale, SmackDown, So, and now with the advent of AEW, I'm starting to get my love back. Not so much for WWE, but that is just me.
Alright, and last but not least, Hannah.
Well, I was at a friend's birthday party, and he had the TV on, and at that time there used to be 1 hour of SmackDown on TV every Saturday night. Of course, dubbed in German. But the thing I remember most was this visual. I mean, the Undertaker walking to the ring, fighting Batista. I think it must be 2006, 2007, around that point, and I had never seen anything like that. And I simply came back. At that time, I mean, on free TV, we only had this 1 hour of dubbed SmackDown, and that was fine for a while. But after a while, I got curious and started watching Raw, SmackDown, and Superstars at that time, and NXT later on. But I mean, sometime later, it just got stale, and WWE started getting stale, and I started watching the indies, AAA, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and stuff like that, Combat Zone Wrestling, and stuff like that. I never got much into Japan. I don't know why. I prefer the Mexican wrestling style. For some reason. And then, I mean, during the time when I was graduating from high school, I simply stopped watching wrestling altogether, because I simply had lost interest. I was going to more and more metal concerts, listening to more and more music, and somehow my old favorites were retiring, injured, or leaving altogether. And then, I mean, because of the podcast, I started or slowly started getting back into wrestling. But nowadays, I mean, if I watch wrestling, it's mostly 80s territories.
Yeah.
The territory stuff.
Oh no.
Oh.
And
Uh-oh.
and I still have to say this to Ricky, since he mentioned AAA. The first Triple Mania that I saw was, I think, Triple Mania 17, I think, where the main event one of the main events was El Macias versus Dr. Wagner Jr.
Oh, that was a great match.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yep, there you
Hello.
are.
He's back.
I'm back. Discord crashed.
Yeah.
Just like it happened to me. That's why I don't have the camera.
Technical difficulties.
Well, nowadays, if I watch wrestling, it's mostly 80s territories, Mid-South, World Class, Crockett, Attitude Era. I rewatched that quite a lot. And Indies. I mean, what really caught my attention back was Lucha Underground. I love those 4 seasons of Lucha Underground.
Me too. Me too.
A bit of AEW. I really enjoy the AEW tag team division. I've always liked tag team wrestling a lot, and some other indie promotions. But I don't really care for WWE, and I don't really care for Japan.
Although if I may, try to watch your home country's promotion, WXW. That's how I got into some of the wrestlers, and the one that I keep mentioning all the time.
And I won't say it because he's probably on your list near the top.
Yeah.
Alright, so now with that being said, it's time to get to our honorable mentions. And I got quite a few because I kind of came up with this list last second because I forgot we were doing this episode today. So I have 7 honorable mentions, and they're quite broad. First, John Cena. I cannot deny John Cena, especially in the second half of his career, like in the last decade, where he just, every year he just seemed to get better and better and better as a in-ring wrestler. Whereas a lot of
Here's
people...
the shock. It's not on my list.
I forgot him. I forgot it.
But it's like, I always liked Cena going back to when he debuted in 2002, and then even more when he started doing the Thugonomics gimmick, which, in my opinion, the last truly great original character we've had in wrestling. Because no one was doing constant rapping on the microphone at that time.
Roasting. And constant roasting.
And constant roasting, too, and he was great at it, whether as a face or as a heel when the gimmick first started. And then, yeah, you can make the memes, Fruity Pebbles, 5 Moves of Doom, or whatever you want to say it nowadays, but you can't deny that after 2010... every year, it just seemed like he started getting better and better as an actual wrestler. So now the whole Cena sucks chant is sort of like the modern you suck chant to Kurt Angle, where nobody really thinks he sucks in the ring. It's now become a fad, kind of like Kurt Angle, over the last few years. And of course, he's had great matches with the likes of CM Punk, Shawn Michaels. Hell, he even got semi-enjoyable matches out of fucking Great Khali. And if you can do that, you can have a great match with anybody. If you can get a somewhat enjoyable match out of arguably the worst wrestler of all time, you can have a great match with just about anybody.
Oh, I forgot to say one thing. I was at a wrestling event here in Portugal where it was a bit of a crossover between a Portuguese wrestling promotion and TNA. I still remember the main event of that night. It was Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe. Wow! Ooh. That was a hell of a match.
Yeah. Next up, can't go wrong with The Rock.
Nope.
After all, like, you look at how short his full-time run was from 96 through 2002, 2003 time. He accomplished... he really lit the wrestling world on fire. Yeah, not in the beginning as Rocky Maivia. Yeah, that was bad. WWE should have learned that lesson with Roman Reigns in the beginning, but yeah, when Rocky Maivia became The Rock, off to the races we went with him, because you knew from the moment he became The Rock and started getting better on the mic and getting better as a wrestler, he was going to be one of the biggest stars of all time. It was almost a foregone conclusion. And it only took him 2 years to get to the top of the company within 96 to 98. So, and of course, if we ever do top 10 wrestlers on the mic or top 10 pro wrestlers or managers on the mic, he'd have to be near the top. Otherwise, your list is invalid. And of course, like I said, great on the mic, was able to really roast people before Cena did eventually. And as a wrestler, great wrestler in the ring. Like, he definitely learned a lot from his father, Pat Patterson, and a bunch of other people he was training with prior to Survivor Series 96. And although although the one bad thing about The Rock in the ring, or actually two things. One, too much over-reliance on theatrics. Two, his sharpshooter is terrible. It's so bad that even Bret Hart said it himself on Twitter. I have a lot of respect for The Rock, but I would be more than happy to teach him how to apply the sharpshooter properly.
Ask Tatsumi Fujinami. He was the one who created the sharpshooter.
Next up, I'm going to go a little bit of classic, in probably arguably the greatest indie wrestler of all time, and one of my favorites from when we used to watch TNA, Christopher Daniels.
Ooh. I used to have a t-shirt of him.
Christopher Daniels, I feel, the greatest independent wrestler of all time, in my opinion. He's been through every indie company, won world titles in all those companies. Never got the world title in TNA, which is a crying shame, but... And Daniels, and funny enough, some people might not know this, but he was in WWF in the late 90s, originally as a stunt double for Edge. And the biggest thing, he was originally meant to be the greater power during the Ministry era. It was supposed to have been him, and if you ask me, it would have worked, it would have been better than what we ended up with, and it would have been a great launching pad to make Daniels a big star in the WWF, to get his Fallen Angel gimmick even more.
And let's not forget another thing, when he was in WWE. He had hair!
Yeah. But, of course, the story goes, Vince didn't want to go with him because he was, quote, too small. Fuck off.
Although that the greatest indie wrestler in the world, Chris Hero, Cassius Ohno, would dispute that. But that's a whole different story.
But, I really like Daniels, especially in his TNA run. That was how I first got to know about him, was through the great matches he had with the likes of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Chris Sabin. Even a good match with Sting, and then some matches later on in TNA. But yeah, Christopher Daniels, I always feel also really good on the mic. He could cut a hell of a promo. I like the Fallen Angel gimmick.
SCU!
Yeah, now he's in AEW as SCU. And the guy's 50 years old and he still looks in phenomenal shape. It's incredible. Speaking of Samoa Joe, he's next. Again, got to know of him from TNA, and seeing some of his past stuff before 2006, like his original undefeated streak in TNA from Slammiversary 2005 to Genesis 2006, about a year and a half. Mowed through everybody. Mowed through the likes of everybody in the X Division, Scott Steiner, Jeff Jarrett. Although he had the brick wall of Kurt Angle come up, but hey, he was able to beat him eventually. And won every title.
I saw between both of them. Sorry.
And won every title in TNA eventually. And then, of course, he comes up to...
And all of his matches with Kurt Angle, they were mat classics. All of his matches I saw with Kurt Angle, they were mat classics. They were perfect for each other.
Yeah, and hell, whenever they had their first match at Genesis 06, they were calling it the dream match of the decade, and it was true. Now, I will say this. I know I'm going a bit off topic, but I will say this. They honestly should have waited a whole year before they did Angle and Joe. Granted, they capitalized on doing it immediately, but imagine if they had waited till Bound for Glory in 2007 to do the match, and they could have gotten massive buy rates on pay-per-view and could have helped TNA a whole lot, but it is what it is. But yeah, Samoa Joe, yeah, his WWE run has been less than stellar, and yeah, it's kind of been plagued due to injuries, but if only he could stay healthy. Yeah, he's a great commentator, but imagine if he had stayed healthy, he probably could have been world champion by now in WWE if he'd not gotten hurt a bunch. Because in NXT, he was amazing in NXT, so... next up, honestly can't do this list without mentioning the Nature Boy Ric Flair in some capacity.
Oh no! God damn it!
Oh boy.
He's my number one.
Oh!
You just killed me. He's my number one.
Wow. Wow, already committed murder.
Yeah. No, you put me in a figure 4 legs, in a figure 16 leg lock.
Oh Lord. But yeah, I mean, Ric Flair, what else can you say about Ric Flair that hasn't been said already? And also WWE, he is not a 16-time world champion, he's a 26-time world champion. Get it right.
True.
But anyways, I mean, yeah, he worked the same style his whole career, but he made it work. And you know what? With one guy, Triple H, who's not on my list, though he almost came close, but people talk about the Reign of Terror when he was constantly world champion between 2002 and 2005. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to have him have a Ric Flair NWA title reign where he had his group and had the title a lot. But the difference, Ric Flair was able to make his opponents look good and made himself look beatable, whereas Triple H looked indestructible and unstoppable, and it was bad. But
Booker T should have been world champion back then.
But with Rick, and of course on the mic, one of the best on the mic. It's so weird. Most of his career he was the top heel, but yet he cut like babyface promos. Like, that was so cool. Like, hell, I was watching Great American Bash 89 when he had his match with Terry Funk. And he changed his promo style for that match. He went all serious, not going over the top, and it was great. So, and I also forgot to mention, as we do our picks, we should mention our favorite match from them. I completely forgot about that. So, going back to Cena, my favorite match Cena has had, his match with AJ Styles at Royal Rumble 2017, when he won the title for the 16th time. I thought that was a brilliant match. For The Rock, him and Stone Cold at WrestleMania 17. For Christopher Daniels, I'm gonna go with, I'm not gonna do multi-man matches, because those are cop-outs. One-on-one, I'm going to go with him and AJ Styles in the Iron Man match for the X Division title at Against All Odds 2005 with the classic Peruvian necktie submission with AJ squirting blood. That was a great visual. Samoa Joe, him and Kurt Angle, I could go with any of the matches he had with Kurt in the first year and a half of that feud, but I would go with... Honestly, I would go with the first match, Genesis 2006, when Joe lost his streak. For Ric Flair, there's so many matches with Ric Flair you could pick.
Steamboat?
You could go Steamboat, you could go Sting, you could go Shawn Michaels, you could go... hell, his match with Vader at Starrcade 93 was a classic. But I guess if I had to go with one, probably his match with Sting at the first Clash of Champions in '88.
Not bad.
Speaking of Sting, he's next on the list for me. Sting, I mean, again, another guy who you could not go wrong with. In either incarnation, Surfer, Crow, or Joker, he was able to make something work. Surfer Sting with the blonde flat top and was just so energetic in the ring. Then you get the Crow, where he's a little bit slower in the ring, kind of like the Undertaker. and more moodiness to the character. And then you get Joker, where you get the more comedic side of Sting. And I know a lot of people hated Joker Sting. I loved Joker Sting. He was able to cut over-the-top promos and make me laugh. Especially that segment where he's in the office with Eric Bischoff on an episode of Impact in 2011, where he's wearing a red suit. And he was
trying to do Hitchcock's Birds.
Oh yeah, remember the Hitchcock movie, The Birds? Yeah, they just peck away at you. And he's going on doing an apology. It was great, but with Sting, if I had to pick my favorite version of Sting for favorite matches, I thought Surfer Sting was better. For promos, probably Surfer Sting again. For the character, Crow Sting was the best, but Surfer Sting, he just had so many great matches. If I had to pick one that stood out for me as far as Sting, it's a toss-up between Flair at Clash '88, the first Clash, or an oddball choice, him and Vader in the White Castle Fear strap match at Super Brawl 3, because it was bloody, it was brutal, and it was awesome. Even though White Castle Fear, that mini-movie, was terrible, but the strap match was the best strap match in the history of the business, so... And then my final wrestler, and I feel like I'm about to commit another murder here, Kane. I knew it!
That's gotta be Kane!
But yes, Kane, yeah, he was originally, growing up, I was terrified of Kane and The Undertaker when I was just a little wee lad. But Kane, I mean, yeah, say what you will about his later years getting booked horribly over the years, and he's an example of a guy who could have been used a whole lot better than he ended up being, kind of like the Big Show, but still, he's still going, even though it's a once a year basis, because Glenn Jacobs, mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. But
did you went there?
I went through Knox County. But yeah, Kane, I mean, we talked about before the show started, when he debuted at Bad Blood in Your House 97 in the first Hell in a Cell, no question the greatest debut in the history of the business, especially with the story and the build-up to it. It won't be matched. And so, there you go. Of course, the characters changed over the years. First incarnation from 97 through mid-99, where he was just unstoppable. You had to do a whole lot to put him down. And then 99, for the most part, he was doing the DX stuff with X-Pac. Then 2000 kind of started the downward spiral where they kept changing him. Babyface, heel. And then 2002, whenever he gets the open mouth mask, he was really good as a babyface. And then they take the mask off, which was, in hindsight, a really stupid move, but for the short term, it worked.
The booking on that was so bad. They could
and then
have
they give
so much more with that.
They could have done a whole lot more with that, because it was such a huge thing. Then they give the mask back, and, of course, the best thing he's done post putting the mask back on, Team Hell No. That was a great tag team. But yeah, Glenn Jacobs himself, one of the best big men in the history of the business. He could go in whatever situation. Yeah, he's had a lot of bad matches and a lot of bad feuds by no fault of his own, but yeah, if I had to choose my favorite match he's had, it'd have to be the first match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 14, the greatest big man match in the history of wrestling. And fuck you, Dave Meltzer, giving that a 1.5 stars. You have no idea what a match is, so you can go fuck yourself. So those are my honorable mentions. Moving on, Artur.
I can go next because I have here a great number of them. Almost 15. I'll just mention who they are and probably the match. Not waste too much time. Unlike you, I have Triple H. I enjoyed Triple H. Yeah, The Age of Terror was shit, but I still enjoy Triple H for what it was. My favorite match, him versus the other honorable mention here as well, Shawn Michaels in 2002, when Shawn Michaels returned for SummerSlam
2002, yep.
I have bask in his glory Keith Lee. I do enjoy Keith Lee a whole lot. And if I have to pick a match, any of him against the Dominic Dijakovic, especially in the Indies. I have Raven as being one of the best promo guys. I mean, he was Jake the Snake Roberts, but a little more moody and darker. And as a match, I would say the series that he had against Tommy Dreamer in ECW. I have one from Hannah's German promotion, WXW. His name, Ilya Dragunov. I mean, I've watched Ilya Dragunov now in WWE and NXT UK, but his WXW run has been one of the best I've ever seen. And if I have to choose a match, probably the match where he won the WXW World Title against John Klinger in 16 Karat Gold 2017. Sorry. I do have the Minneapolis boys, the Minnesota boys, Mr. Perfect and Rick Rude, R.I.P. both of them. I did enjoy Mr. Perfect, even though I know he was arrogant and such. And if I have to pick a match, him against Bret Hart. As for Rick Rude, the one that he won the WCW World Title, I don't remember which one it is. I have The Rock, obviously, for the reasons that have been previously mentioned. And if I have to pick a match, him versus Stone Cold, WrestleMania 15. I have also 3 from Mexico, my Mexican contingent, so to say. I have El Macias, Ricky Banderas. He was one of the guys that got me back into wrestling. Just like the one that he has on his list. He has on his list.
Yeah, on my list.
I have him with the other guy, which is Dr. Wagner Jr., because of that match that I just mentioned, Triple Mania 6. I think it was 16 or 17, where Macias won, where Wagner won the match.
Yeah, 17.
I also have, and this, I don't do a judgment, Eddie Guerrero. I do have him on my list, and I just committed a double murder, so to say. Number 4 and number... Okay. Levi guessed my number 1, so he murdered me as well. And I also have Sting. As well. And if I have to choose a match, yeah, mostly the matches against Ric Flair. That's it.
Hannah.
Well, 12 honorable mentions. But I'm not going to name matches because I never remember matches. I might throw a few in here, but it won't happen too often. First of all, I have 3 80s tag teams on my list, although one could be considered a stable. I've got the Road Warriors.
They're on my list. They're on my list.
I love 80s tag team wrestling, but only one tag team actually made it on the list. But I'm going to talk about them later. Then I've got the Freebirds.
Woo! Nice!
And I've got the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, more!
Yeah, Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton.
No Von Erichs?
I don't like the Von Erichs. Sorry, I prefer the Freebirds over the Von Erichs. Mm-hmm. I don't care about the Von Erichs. Well,
I did like the Von Erichs, but I also like the Freebirds as well. So I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah, and then a few icons. I've got Ric Flair on my list.
Not again. Not again.
I like Ric Flair, but there are others I prefer over Ric Flair.
Like Kane? Like Kane.
for example. Then I've got Ted DiBiase on here. I love that $1 million man gimmick and his laugh and every his feud with Virgil and so on. I mean, whenever
That's a
you
good
hear the money, I mean, I simply love that. Then I've got two hardcore icons on my list: Terry Funk and Mick Foley.
Oh, I forgot Mick Foley. Oh, I forgot Mick Foley. Sorry.
I love the early Terry Funk matches and his later run in ECW and so on, and then his short stint as Chainsaw Charlie, and of course Mick Foley. I mean, who can forget that match against the Undertaker? That Hell in a Cell match.
Good God Almighty! Good God Almighty!
Yeah, but I personally I also like the Hell in a Cell match against Kane. I mean, that one is also crazy with the thumbtacks and everything. What else do I've got? I've got a few WWE wrestlers I really enjoy. I've got Daniel Bryan.
Yes.
I think he is a great technical
Number 9.
and I mean his time with Kane and Team Hell No, and also his later solo career after his return from injury. It's awesome. And then I've got Edge.
It's my honorable mentions. He's in my honorable mentions.
Yes.
I simply enjoy his time as a tag team wrestler with Christian, wrestling against the Dudleys and the Hardys, and with all those ladder match pioneering ladder matches, especially the one at WrestleMania. I think that's awesome. I think
We'll see.
2000
WrestleMania 17.
Yeah.
The WrestleMania.
They had Mania 16 was a triangle ladder match. SummerSlam 2000, the first TLC. Mania 17, TLC.
And then TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7.
I fucking love that match. And I really liked his time as a heel in the 2010s.
Rated R superstar, yeah.
Yeah, feeding against Jeff Hardy and Kane later on.
Cena.
Yep. Oh, I mean, he was. I really liked him, and I was really sad.
And of course the reality warping feud with Matt Hardy in 2005.
Oh.
Well, and I also got three indies wrestlers that I kind of enjoy. At least I enjoyed their times on the indies: Ricochet, Pac, and Kenny Omega.
He's on my list. He's on my Canadian contingent at number 10.
I think it's awesome what they can do and what they are doing. I only think Ricochet's booking on WWE is pretty bad. At least what I've seen, and I think it's good that Pac or Neville or whatever left WWE.
And now he's the bastard.
Yeah,
the bastard Pac.
And I've seen a few Kenny Omega matches, and I think they're all awesome, but I haven't seen too many, and that's
same here.
I'll recommend when I mention Kenny Omega on my number 10 list. I'll recommend you a match.
The one match of Kenny Omega I've watched that I liked was him and Moxley at
No, Okada.
Like I said,
match.
I'm going to recommend you a good one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ricky.
I have 12 honorable mentions. First one, a hardcore legend. The genocidal, suicidal, homicidal, Sabu. I just love the way Sabu is. His character paid homage to his uncle, the Sheik. Favorite match has to be the barbed wire match between Terry Funk for the ECW World Title. That's probably my favorite Sabu match.
With branding irons too.
Oh yeah, and then in the match, I think Sabu ripped his quad. I think in one of the part of the match. Next up, Abismo Negro. I have a funny story.
Oh yeah, Abismo. I know of him.
Yeah. I have a funny story with Abismo Negro. I saw him in now I remember the name of the arena, Los Cuatro Caminos. It was on a Monday.
El Toreo de los Cuatro Caminos. I know
Yeah,
that. I know that.
I want to say it was 2010, and he was at the main event. Versus, it was like a 6-man tag. It was him, El Hijo del Fantasma, and I forget the other guy versus La Parka, Cibernetico, and I don't know the other guy. Well, anyways, in one of the moves, one of the guys rips his mask off, and I remember because my dad was fucking drunk that night. He started yelling at Abismo Negro, "Pinche pendejo!" You know, you're into the moment, and Abismo, yeah, fucked up my guy. "Cállate, pinche seco!" It was one of those funny moments, and you think you're like, "Oh my god, I can actually experience that." Favorite match from him has to be the Triple Mania 15 versus the Imposter Abismo Negro. And God rest his soul, he passed away. At least he's inducted into the AEW Hall of Fame. Next up, I got Hulk Hogan.
Oh, man.
boy.
Never. You want 5 moves of doom? Hulk Hogan made that.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan. I mean, probably the most recognizable wrestler ever. I mean, you mentioned Andre the Giant, you mentioned Hulk Hogan. It's kind of like a package deal. Favorite match? Probably the Andre Hogan match at WrestleMania 3. Next up, the by Ric Flair. Woo!
You all were there today.
Yeah, I mean, he's the GOAT. What more can I say? He's the GOAT. And like Levi said, more than 16-time world champion. He's like 26, 24-time world champion.
At least, yeah.
At least. Favorite match? Oh, it's tough because I like the Shawn match at WrestleMania. I also like the best of 7 series between Ricky Steamboat. I think those are classic matches.
In 89, going through to
Yeah,
like
in 89.
94.
Yeah. Next up, I got a tie. Because you can't talk one without the other. El Santo and Blue Demon. If you want to talk you want to talk about Mexican wrestling, these 2 names are at the top of the list. Their matches in the early 30s, early 40s were some of the most energetic, high-flying matches between 2 individuals that kept their mask on even outside public. Even in movies, started in movies with their masks on. If you see those old Mexican 40 movies, they have their masks on. It was like El Santo contra el Fantasma, El Santo contra el Vampiro.
Wasn't it El Santo who was buried with his mask on?
Yeah.
Yes, he was buried with his mask on. And I had the opportunity to see his son, El Hijo del Santo, wrestle one time against Villano 3. I think that's Villano 3. Yeah, it was like, I want to say 7 years ago. Next up, Roddy Piper. For a long time, he was probably my favorite WWE legend. I mean, he's Roddy Piper, one of the greatest talkers in the world.
And you want to say as recognizable as Hulk Hogan? Rowdy was one of them.
Yeah, and especially probably my favorite memory of Piper is probably everyone's favorite when he smashes the coconut to Jimmy Superplex right in the head. Favorite match? Probably the WrestleMania 1, the versus Mr. T, or WrestleMania 2 when he boxed Mr. T, and then he cheated to win with some knuckles that Cowboy Bob Orton gave him to knock him out. Next up, I got Edge.
As well.
I can kind of mention everything. I mean, he's probably one of the greatest wrestlers that ever stepped into WWE. Favorite match? The WrestleMania 17 match with him and Christian versus the Dudleys and the Hardys. And you cannot forget that epic moment when Edge is at the top of the ladder and spears Jeff Hardy all the way to the ground, and you can just hear his neck just like pop, like just went.
And his reaction afterwards, like going, woo!
Yeah. Next up, I got 2, which I'm surprised we haven't mentioned: William Regal and Finley.
I'm more of a Regal guy than Finley.
Look, Willem Regal gets a lot of shit, but doesn't get a lot of recognition because Willem Regal, believe it or not, is one of those great technicians that if you look carefully and study his moves, he inspired people like Jane O'Brien. He inspired people like Chris Benoit. He inspired so many technical wrestlers that it's a shame nobody mentions him. With Finley, on the other hand, he's more of a brawler. I mean, I like those kind of brawler matches he had with I think it was the Great Khali or the Boogeyman. I think it was those kind of matches that just
The Belfast Brawl.
Yeah, I think it was those that just beat the living shit out of them. I mean, like I said, it's Finley. He loves to fight.
And one can say that without Regal, the modern British scene would never have existed.
Exactly. So you can thank the British scene for Willem Regal, and also the British Bulldog to just give them some credit. I got two more. Next up, Octagon.
What?
Octagon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, one of those Mexican wrestlers that I've seen so many times live that it was something that I had to put. I mean, his martial artist style of wrestling brought a different atmosphere to his opponents. That even his opponents were a bit scared of him in his younger days. Now, I mean, he retired like a couple of years ago, but in his prime, he was probably the most athletic Jiu-Jitsu wrestlers. Favorite match, you had to be against his imposter, Pentagon. That's probably my favorite Octagon. He's my favorite. Last but not least, Rey Mysterio.
Ray.
Yeah, again, one of those Mexican wrestlers that transitioned to WWE who made it big. I mean, multiple world titles, Intercontinental Champion, Tag Team Champion. He's done everything. Favorite match? It's tough because I like the Royal Rumble match when it lasted a minute and 2 seconds. I also like the WrestleMania match he had with Kurt Angle and Randy. So I don't know. It's between those two. So yeah.
I'll throw you in one better. I'll throw you in one better. Him and Eddie at Halloween Havoc '97.
I have another one better, and Ricky might acknowledge this. If not, that's okay. Any of his matches against Psychosis.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In WCW or ECW.
Mm-hmm. Or in AAA. I mean, those were high flying matches. I mean, God, you couldn't. It's like I said, the chemistry between those two. They were
trained by Ray's uncle. They were both trained by Ray's uncle, the original Rey Mysterio.
Yep, the original Rey Mysterio. So yeah, that's my list.
Alright, and now it is time for the top 10. I shall kick this off with my number 10. None other than Le Champion, Chris Jericho.
He's also on my number 10, along with several others.
And
I'm going to pull Hannah so many times.
She's going to send the German army after you after this.
Oh, boy.
Le Champion, Chris Jericho.
But anyways, prior to Le Champion, Chris Jericho had already had a legendary career prior, and it's interesting how his story happened. Like, he grew up loving both wrestling and music, and he wanted to do both, but wrestling took off first. The closest person I could compare him to as far as in wrestling and music, Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, because they both have parallel careers. Both loved wrestling and music. For Jericho, wrestling took off, then music. For Corgan, music took off, then wrestling. But regardless, with Jericho, he first burst onto the scene in Mexico, then he went to Germany, then to America, then to Japan, then back to America when he went to ECW. And then after ECW, you go to WCW, where he becomes one of the greatest cruiserweights of all time. Yeah, his career in WCW ended in a bad way after the Goldberg mini feud that could have helped a lot for him, but didn't in the end. But then once you get him to WWF, and his career basically went to Hall of Fame status within a year. And it's funny to think he almost quit after WrestleMania 16. And the thing that helped him stay, they gave him the title for just one night. In a title change that they don't even recognize, but beating Triple H on a random episode of Raw, I think prior to Backlash 2000, and then only to get it taken away from him. But they gave it to him for that one time, and it was enough to keep him around. So, and then he would eventually get it to by himself at the end of 2001, the first undisputed champion. And then after that, you basically could give him anything and could get it over.
And The Rock in the same night. We hear all that all the time.
Yep. He made sure to never forget, because if he hadn't brought it up, people would have probably forgotten it by now. But he always likes to bring it up, and good thing he did. And then after that, basically he could get anything over. He could get a scarf over. He can get a fucking clipboard with paper over. He could get champagne over. He can get these random phrases over like stupid idiot. You just made the list. Le champion. Like, is there anything this guy can't do? It's so funny.
Even on commentary, he is hilarious.
Exactly. One of the best on the mic, one of the greatest in the ring. If I had to choose my favorite match for Jericho, and there are a fuck ton of great matches you could choose from with Jericho, you could go with any match he had with the name that never gets mentioned anymore, Chris Benoit. Any match really with Shawn. There's a bunch of them, but the one match I feel stands out for me, I'm going to go with the ladder match with Benoit at Royal Rumble 2001 for the Intercontinental Championship. That was a great match. That was awesome. A close second, him and Shawn at WrestleMania 19. And you know what? Fuck it. I'm going with Shawn and Jericho for Mania 19 because that was such a dream match, and we finally got it, and it was a classic to this day. And the ending with the hug and Jericho crying, kick him in the nuts to show why he's a bastard.
Yep.
So
yeah.
If I had to do a tie for favorite match for Jericho, it'd be those two. The match with Shawn at Mania 19, the ladder match with Benoit at Royal Rumble 2000.
I also have Chris Jericho on my number 10, but I've put here sort of I'm going to pull Hannah, so to say, because I'll put here my Canadian best, so to say. I've got Jericho for all the reasons that Levi just mentioned. And if I have to pick a match, I'm going WCW because all of his matches with Dean Malenko, they were technical masterpieces. No question. Surprised no one has mentioned these two, but I've put them together. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, along with the King of Hearts, Bret and Owen.
Honorable mentions. I forgot about Bret and Owen.
And I've put these two together. And I'll mention the WrestleMania 10 match, both of them, Owen versus Bret, another technical masterpiece. And I have as well Kenny Omega too. He was also one of the reasons why I got back into wrestling in the first place, especially with all the stuff that he did in New Japan Wrestling as the cleaner. Also, what could go wrong by coming out with a Terminator ripoff song? And if I have to choose a match, and Hannah, this is for you, check one of his matches against one of the guys that I have on my list, especially on number 6, against the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada.
Oh, it's a great match.
Watch any of his matches, and the number 6 is my Japanese representation. So I've put them all. I don't know if I should put here Rowdy Piper because supposedly he was born Canadian, not.
Yeah, he was not Saskatchewan.
So I've put here, but I really shouldn't because I always have that impression that he is a true Scotsman. So Jericho, the Hart brothers, Owen and Bret, and Kenny Omega, they make my number 10.
Hannah?
I've got a tie on my number 10 because I think one cannot go without the other. Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit.
Both my number 4 and 6.
One's at number 7.
I mean, their matches, along with Dean Malenko and Chris Jericho in both WCW and WWE, are amazing. What else can I say? Both great technical wrestlers. I love Eddie Guerrero on the mic, and his persona he portrayed with the and everything. And then Chris Benoit. I mean, just a tough son of a bitch, wrestling the hell out of everyone, despite him being so short. I mean, it's weird in a way, but then again, he's just awesome, or at least what he did is awesome, and I think both cannot go without the other. I mean, there are so many matches the two of them had. I'm bad with remembering matches, so I'm not gonna name any. But number 10, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit.
Ricky.
My number 10 is actually a faction. Probably my favorite faction from AAA. La Secta.
The La Secta, oh, damn! What did you get?
Yeah.
La Secta. I know those guys.
I mean, they have gone through many different names. La Secta del Cibernética, La Secta del Macias, the Black Family. All of those guys, Cibernético, Chessman, Charlie Manson, the Macias, Oz, Cuervo, Escoria, Espiritu, they were basically the ministry of AAA. The Ministry of Darkness of AAA. The whole cultish atmosphere they brought to AAA was refreshing because we didn't have that before, I want to say 2005, 2006. We didn't have nothing occultish in AAA until these guys created the faction. And then sure, the storyline Cibernetico betraying them came in Macias became the leader. Then three of the members became the Hill Brothers, and it's a whole different timeline that I could go on forever. But that faction, I've seen them live. So you have no idea how many times I've seen them live. I've met them. I have their autographs. I wish I could have taken a picture with him, with all of them, but that was before we had phones. We had still the cameras. I didn't have a camera at the time, but favorite match from all of them? My favorite would have to be their debut when that's a faction, when they beat La Parka to the living crap. I think it was at a Triple Mania. I don't know which one it was, but they became this faction that run wild throughout AAA for almost 10 years. Kind of like if the Nexus would have continued, it would have been like that. Yeah. My number 10, the entire La Secta faction from AAA.
And while we're on you, let's get your number 9.
My number 9 is the Ayatollah Rock and Roll.
Jericho. Jericho.
Le Champion himself, Y2J, Chris Jericho. Levi,
Is it so bad? Is it so bad that I can't get that French accent seriously? Oh, Le Champion.
I mean, Levi, you mentioned everything about Chris Jericho. Yeah, he started in Mexico as Corazon de León, Lionheart, and then he went through New Japan. He went through, I think, he even went through.
He went through Germany.
I know. I think he went even through.
He went through Smoky Mountain Wrestling for a short time.
With Lance Storm.
Yeah, Puerto Rico. He went to Puerto Rico with Carlos Colon's promotion. I mean, Chris Jericho is one of those guys that reinvents himself every decade. He keeps himself fresh to the point that he got a fucking scarf over. Even a fucking list got him over. Even Champagne got him over. I mean, come on, there's nothing that he can't.
A little bit of the bubbly.
Yeah, a little bit of the bubbly. And the fact that he has a band adds to the more thing that I love more Chris Jericho because of Fozzy. Favorite match?
Fozzy live is awesome. I saw them.
Never saw them live.
Favorite Jericho match? I don't know. It's tough. I think it had to be the unsanctioned match between Jericho and Shawn.
From
That has to be one
Unforgiven
of my
'08.
yeah, the unsanctioned match. The ladder match they had the previous pay per view after
The
that.
next month at No Mercy.
Yeah. Or I'm trying to think of another one. Or the one that he won. He beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve
And
Austin in the
Vengeance
same
won.
night.
We know.
And became the first undisputed champion.
We know.
And he has one. I mean, he has a record 9-time Intercontinental Champion. Well, technically 10 if you want to count the New Japan Intercontinental Championship. But Jericho's one of those guys that reinvents himself, that keeps himself fresh. That I don't know what's the next thing he's gonna get over. Could be a freaking cup or something. He'll be like, "Le Cup of the Champion, buy now on AEW." I mean, knowing. I mean, it's a marketing genius.
He is. He is.
All right, my number 9 is Daniel Bryan. Of course, I didn't get to know of his. Of course, I didn't get to know of his indie stuff until after he came to WWE. Yeah, when he first came to WWE,
Bryan Danielson.
when he first came to WWE, I heard a lot of people getting hyped over him, and I couldn't really understand why until a couple years later, after he started showing some character range, getting better on the mic, especially thanks to the Team Hell No stuff with Kane, and then going back seeing some of his stuff like with Nigel McGuinness, Samoa Joe, guys along those lines. I have a few ROH DVDs that have a bunch of matches with him in it, but of course, as he grew into his own in WWE, especially after the match with Cena at SummerSlam 2013, and then I was there for when he finally got the moment he deserved, winning the titles at Mania 30, going through 2 matches. But, and then short-lived retirement from 2016 to 2018. Now he's back and still going strong. Hell, he just had a classic on SmackDown with AJ Styles for the IC title. So, if I had to choose a favorite match from Daniel Bryan, oh god, there's quite a bit out there I could go with.
I mean, you can go for the WrestleMania 30 match.
I mean, I could, but those aren't his best ones.
Against Cena? SummerSlam?
It's kind of tough, because the main matches I've seen Bryan have been in WWE. I don't know, I guess I would go for...
You can go for the one he won against Punk in Ring of Honor.
I could. You know what? I'm going to go with the match with, because I was there live, the match with Triple H at Mania 30, one of the best opening matches in the history of the business. So, there you go. Hannah.
Well, my number 9 consists of a tag team and also kind of represents Lucha Libre. And they're one of the only new wrestlers I discovered since I started watching wrestling again. Number 9 goes to the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix. Yeah, one of my favorite discoveries ever since I started watching wrestling again. I mean, with Rey Fenix, you have an awesome high flyer, and the stuff he does on the top, on the ropes, mind-boggling. And then Pentagon Jr., I mean, he isn't so much on the high-flying side, but he still can do amazing stuff. And
Pentagon Jr. is more of a ground guy. Very submissional. He can do a lot of submissions that even the arm breaker looks real.
Yep. I mean, and the moves he does, the Mexican Destroyer, the Fear Factor, and the Penta Driver, and all those crazy maneuvers. It's just amazing. And then, I mean, for a Mexican guy, what he I don't speak Spanish, but the promos he did on Lucha Underground were fucking fantastic. and I mean, he even became the Impact World Champion and so on, and the Lucha Underground Champion. He's awesome, and his work together with his brother Phoenix is awesome. So far every match I've watched of the two of them, I enjoyed it immensely. And probably my favorite match, with including the Lucha Brothers, would be the ladder match versus the Young Bucks at AEW.
Yeah. Hell
I
yeah.
think that one was amazing, and probably one of my favorite Pentagon singles matches, either against Vampiro on Lucha Underground. That
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
fantastic. Or the Mexican death match against Sami Callihan on Impact.
Oh, that was a great
Yeah.
match.
I mean, there are so many awesome matches with these two that I've watched recently, and without doubt, they're my favorite discovery ever since restarting watching wrestling. Cero Miedo. Well, what can I say?
Artur.
Let me see if I can do this straight. Hey y'all, say hello to Razor Ramon. If something happened to this chain, something gonna happen to you.
Hell.
I mean, I've made a mark for Scott Hall, Razor Ramon for most of my entire life. I still remember before I even was introduced to Scarface, I still remember Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, however you want to call it, him throwing his catchphrases, the toothpicks. I've always loved. I mean, you want cool bad guys? Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, they were the epiphany of cool bad guy. There were some like Tully Blanchard. There was superstar Billy Graham as well, but nothing to me spoke louder than Razor Ramon. And if I have to name a match, Shawn Michaels and him, WrestleMania 10 for the Intercontinental Championship, the first ever ladder match. Although his matches against Perfect, they were also excellent. So, hey y'all, it's survey time, and the original member of the NWO.
Oh boy. So now we're on to number 8.
Yep.
You knew it was coming. And Artur, we shall start with you.
Let me see if I can still pull this off, because this one is going to be on everyone's list. That's right, baby! Kurt Angle! That's right, baby! Kurt Angle!
Everybody!
I mean,
You suck!
I
You
mean,
suck!
you want
You suck!
the only Olympic gold medalist in WWE who won the gold medal with a broken freaking neck. I mean, someone who wasn't supposed to be over, but he still was. I mean, Milkomania, him showering the Alliance with a milk truck.
The $1 billion princess
Has become a Dairy Queen.
I mean, Kurt Angle.
I have returned.
But Kurt Angle, he could do everything. He was a technical wizard, no question about it. But he did moonsaults out of the top of a cage, which was insane. If he wanted to brawl, he could brawl. If he wanted to do MMA, he did. I mean, look at his matches with Samoa Joe in Impact. I mean, Kurt Angle,
MMA, but
if you want the greatest all-around wrestler who could do all styles, Kurt Angle is the man, so to say. That's why he's my number 8. Had to do it. Had to do it. And I just killed Levi.
Oh, real quick, Raphael, we can hear people in the background.
Oh.
Yeah. Oops-a-doodle. But anyways, continue, Artur.
I ended.
Oh, you didn't say favorite match.
Oh, sorry. Favorite match. I could name any one of them with Samoa Joe, but I could name any of them against Shawn Michaels, but I'll go him versus Brock against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 19.
That was insane.
The one match
Yeah.
that he concussed himself. Oh, Lesnar concussed himself.
That Brock Lesnar nearly killed himself.
Yeah. My number 8. I'm gonna go with Mr. TNA himself, AJ Styles. After all, and unlike Daniel Bryan, I first discovered AJ Styles because of TNA, because funny enough, I got into TNA in 2006, and then as I started watching it more and I saw AJ Styles, and I couldn't believe how good he was. Went back, watched his old TNA stuff from 2002 to 2005, and I was thinking to myself, why doesn't this guy get to go to WWE? And then 2016 comes, and he's there, and he's been kicking ass ever since. Now the current Intercontinental Champion. Yeah, on the mic, not the best, but he's very, very good on the mic in his own right. But it's all about in the ring for AJ. He can tell a story, he can go in whatever style you want him to, and he'll deliver. Favorite match? I'm gonna go with him and John Cena from Royal Rumble 2017. If I included multi-man matches, no question the choice would have been him versus. What?
I can raise you a better AJ style match. Him versus Shinsuke Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom 11.
Oh, Wrestle
Oh yeah,
Kingdom,
New Japan. I was gonna mention that one.
But if I were to have included. But if I was to have included multi-man matches, the reason why I take them out is because I feel they're cop-outs. But if I included one, no doubt it would be him versus Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe from Unbreakable 2005. The greatest triple threat in the history of the business. But since I'm not including those, it's only one-on-ones, I'm going with him and Cena from Royal Rumble 2017 because I feel... As great as Cena versus Punk was in Money in the Bank 2011, I felt this was the match of the decade for WWE in the 2010s. Because these two beat the shit out of each other. And the crowd... Uh-oh.
And another good one was when he fought Undertaker on this year's WrestleMania.
Yeah, but that was more of a segment than anything.
Yeah.
That was more of a movie.
Yeah. But anyways, Ricky.
Wait.
Oh no.
My number 8. My number 8. And that's the bottom line.
Oh no!
Said so.
My number 4. It's my number 4.
Gold. Steve Austin.
My number
From
2.
from Victoria, Texas, not Austin, Texas. Victoria, Texas.
Yeah, from Victoria, Texas.
The Texas
Stone Cold.
Rattlesnake.
Steve Austin.
And how was Jim Ross going to say, and by God, there it is, the toughest son of a bitch in the WWE.
I broke Levi. That's number 1. I know this is number 1. I mean, it was obvious I was going to put Stone Cold.
He got beers. He's getting beers.
Hello. He's a Texan. Hello.
Oh boy,
One of his best hit was
You mean
Victoria
this?
Jericho.
Talk about soft. Talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, "I just whipped your ass."
Yeah. No, one of the best was also when he told Chris Jericho, "Those titles are coming home with Stone Cold, and that's not a damn thing you can do about it."
That could not have hurt more.
Payback the bitch,
that could not have
motherfucker.
hurt more. How so very dare you?
Hey,
How dare you, sir?
hey, I said it once, I'll say it again. He's from Texas. It was obvious I was gonna put him in the list. You should have seen that coming.
He's my number 4. So
I mean, anyway, what more can we say about Stone Cold Steve Austin that hasn't been said or done? I mean, sure, he started his career as in WCW as stunning Steve Austin with Brian Pillman. That tag team was
underrated
short-lived.
tag team.
Yep, that tag team was short-lived for a bit until he crossed to WWF to become
Or him known as the Ringmaster.
the Ringmaster,
Ugh.
which it was an okay gimmick, but seeing Austin with hair just seems so weird now. I've already gotten used to him without being bald, and of course he won the King of the Ring, and he's just went up and up and up and up. The flagship of that Attitude Era for WWE.
And we started feuding with Vince McMahon.
That's
Oh, yeah.
fucking awesome.
Yeah, probably one of the best rivalries in wrestling, the Austin McMahon feud. Favorite match?
Austin Rock as well.
No, one of the best was when Stone Cold, well, Vince was in the hospital, and Stone Cold is dressed like a doctor.
Yeah.
Bedpan.
Yeah, he's
Favorite-
like, yeah, I got this verse. You're like, what?
I still prefer the beer trucks. I'll never forget the
yeah.
beer trucks.
Oh,
Favorite
yeah.
match?
But when he beard The Rock DX. He's got a beer hose! Oh, my beer!
I love
Favorite-
that scene so much when Steve Austin has that guitar and sings to Vince McMahon, and then Kurt Angle joins in.
Jimmy Crackcorn, and I don't care. Jimmy Crackcorn.
Crackcorn, I don't care. I got Olympic gold.
I got Olympic gold.
But favorite Austin match?
Even Kurt Angle, when he was corny, he was cool.
Yeah. Favorite Austin match has to be the Rock match at WrestleMania 17. Probably my favorite. And the ending, sure, it was like, what the fuck, turning Austin heel? I mean, at the time, it was a ballsy move, but it backfired in the end with the whole invasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, number 8, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm sorry, Levi. I'm sorry.
Then maybe now we can get Raphael's 10 to 8.
Yep.
Yes. I just want to go into a corner and fetal position and cry.
No, it's better to have a beer. Number 10,
Raphael,
yeah.
you're number 10 to number 8.
I have number 10, Hayabusa
Oh!
from FWA. I have number 9, Sting.
Huh?
8, Shinsuke Nakamura.
He's on my list. He is on my list.
Alright, so
Oh man! All right,
Hey,
Hannah.
Hannah?
Before I chop my dick off.
Choppy choppy pee pee?
Exactly.
Well, I've got a tie again on my number 8 because one, in my opinion, cannot go without the other. The showstopper, Shawn Michaels. And
Of course.
The best there was, and the best there ever
Oh,
will be,
Bret.
Bret Hart.
number 2.
Okay, Anna's gonna
Sean
pull a
is-
Montreal screw job.
Oh yeah.
Number 2. Sean's my number 2.
Sean
He's a
number 6,
Texan,
Brett at
goddammit.
5.
He's a
I mean,
Texan, goddammit.
Shawn Michaels, his career. I mean, starting out with Martin Jannetty as a tag team as the Rockers, awesome. And then his later solo work, especially in the '90s, the matches he had with Bret Hart, the Iron Man match, and so on, amazing. But his later career, I mean, those 2 matches with the Undertaker. Awesome, and Bret Hart himself as a tag team wrestler with the Hart Foundation and his later solo in-ring work, awesome. I think both are some of the best and most important performers of the early '90s. great technical wrestlers, high flyers, some to a certain degree as with Shawn Michaels, and favorite match, the Iron Man match of the two of them, and the Montreal Screwjob.
Oh boy.
Of course.
Well, while we're on you, Hannah, let's start with you for number 7.
Well, my number 7 has been mentioned before. Kurt Angle. He could wrestle a tree and it would look awesome. Throughout his career, he has always performed at a very solid, very high level. But what I personally really like about Kurt Angle are his comedic chops. I mean, I could miss my... every time I see that scene where Steve Austin gives Vince McMahon this cowboy hat, and then Kurt Angle gets
With the little one.
party hat.
No,
and
one of the
it's so
best
fun.
that ever happened to Kurt Angle was when Edge gave him like pictures of himself.
Oh
And it
yeah,
says,
that
"I
was
suck."
cool.
Then the messages
That was
on
a
the
good
back.
one.
Really suck.
P.S. I have no testicles.
Was an Edge that started the "You Suck" chants as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
he did.
Edge.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt Angle, his in-ring work is awesome, and his mic skills and his comedic timing, everything about him is awesome. And in my opinion, he's one of the greatest there ever will be. Kurt Angle.
All right, Ricky.
My number 7 is probably the newest wrestler in my list, even though he's not really that new. He's already like in between. From Chicago, Illinois, CM Punk.
Look in my eyes, what do you see?
The cult of
Although the song is cool.
personality.
Or
Now,
just fire
now
to them.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about CM Punk. At the beginning of his career, I was not a fan of him. I began to become more a fan of him when he became a heel in the straight edge society. That's when he really started to shine a bit, doing the beer and the Jesus before Seth Rollins is doing now the Jesus thing, which CM Punk did it better. I'm just gonna say that. But anyway, and then he had the feud with the Undertaker. He had feuds with John Cena, Big
Mysterio?
Show.
Mysterio?
Yeah, the Rey Mysterio hair versus mask match at Over the Limit. Probably one of the most entertaining matches I've seen of both Punk and Rey. And of course, you have the infamous pipe bomb that just put him all the way to the stratosphere, because everything he said was the truth. And it's true. To this day, people keep telling the pipe bomb, and it's true. I mean, when Vince McMahon unfortunately passes, it's gonna be run by Bull Hunter and Stephanie. I'm putting it nicely because he put it in a whole different way, and the
Yeah.
whole. I mean, but yeah, CM Punk is the voice of the voiceless. He speaks whatever the fuck he says. He doesn't care what he thinks.
Just
of
look
him.
at his Twitter for that.
Mm-hmm. And I always thought CM Punk was like a modern version of Stone Cold, even though he's nowhere near Stone Cold. And I like the little bit that they had, because supposedly Punk in an interview said there was supposed to be a match between Punk and Austin at a WrestleMania. I don't know, WrestleMania
Mania 29.
29 or 27, one of those two. I don't remember which one
29.
it
It would have been 29.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a match, but Stone Cold was like, nah, he's not. He wasn't ready, or he just didn't want to wrestle. But yeah, I mean, one of the best talkers in wrestling, one of the athletically, he can do a lot of stuff. I like his career outside of wrestling, especially in the horror movie genre. When they
One
did the-
thing that he won't be remembered for, MMA. Blech.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started on his MMA career. I'm sorry, Punk. I love you,
He
but
got beat by a rookie.
you got beaten in less than 10 seconds. Not even a round.
Rookie. By
Exactly.
submission.
Exactly.
But he still got the most pay. CM Punk
Yeah.
was paid around $250,000. Mickey Gall, even winning, he only got $75,000.
Yeah. But I'm happy he's slowly coming back to WWE, even though he's in contract with Fox. But that's at least one stepping stone to bury the hatchet between the dispute between Hunter and... But thankfully, if CM Punk would have walked out, Daniel Bryan would have never gotten his push. So that's like a blessing and a curse. So yeah. My number 7, CM Punk.
Favorite match?
Favorite match? Oh. The Undertaker match at WrestleMania 29. That should have been the main event instead of the twice in a lifetime match between Cena and Rock.
Or what they should have done, put Punk in that match and make it a triple threat.
Yeah, I mean, they could have done that too. That way, he could have had this main event match. He always wanted it,
and he wouldn't have had to take the fall. Rock would have taken the fall.
Yeah, and also, of course, we know he walked out of the Royal Rumble and all that dispute.
Yeah. Oh God, my number 7 has been spoiled. It's Eddie Guerrero, Latino Heat. I mean, Eddie.
Heat.
And I'll say this too: whenever he died, that was one of the worst weeks of my entire life, because I was staying with my aunt and uncle because the rest of the family was in Florida. I was still here, and Eddie died, and I was just missing the folks, and it was just a terrible week, But Eddie, I mean, his legacy will not be matched. I mean, great in the ring, great on the mic, great character, lie, cheat, and steal, and just so funny. Favorite match? What?
One of the funniest things Eddie's ever done was when he stole JBL's hat.
But my favorite match Eddie had, it'd have to be the match with Rey Mysterio at WCW Halloween Havoc 97 in title versus mask. And funny enough, originally Rey was supposed to lose the match and lose the mask, but they changed it. So who knows what could happen?
At least it's a better way. It's a better way to lose the mask than to lose it to Kevin Nash.
Oh.
Yeah. 2 years later. But yeah, Eddie Guerrero, my number 7. Who have I not gotten number 7s from yet?
Me.
I think you and Artur, so we'll go to Artur next.
I'm going to pull a Hannah once again, because my number 7 is a list of tag teams / factions that I love. I have the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. They were not the most technical wrestlers in the world, but I mean, I could not stop laughing about all the comedic chops that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, both of them had. Matches, I don't know that many matches of them that I could remember. I mostly know them for their chemistry together. I also have the 4 Horsemen. I mean, Arn, Rick, Tully, Barry Windham, J.J. Dillon. And if you want matches with them, I have the perfect one. They versus the Superpowers. Nikita Koloff, Dusty Rhodes, and the Road Warriors. That are also on my list as well in War Games. But for the Road Warriors, that I love them. Hawk, rest in peace. And you could say anything you want about the 3D, but I still say that 3D is number 2 as tag team finishers only to the Doomsday device. I mean, I love the 3D. It is a hell of a move, but I would much rather take a 3D than take a Doomsday device.
Yeah.
That shit is scary.
Yeah.
Favorite Road Warriors match? Against either the Hart Foundation or even against Demolition. That are also on my list as well. And last but not least, Jim Cornette's favorite tag team, the one team that gives them heart attacks every time that they go, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. They were alongside Kenny Omega Another reason why I got back into wrestling. Favorite match of them? Ooh, I mean, the ladder match versus the Lucha Brothers as well. But I'll go one further. In Ring of Honor, I think it was Supercard of Honor. They against the Hardy Boys, which was a tag team dream match. It was them versus the Hardy Boys in a ladder match for the Ring of Honor tag team titles. Those are my number 7.
Raphael.
My number 7 has to be Scott Hall's alter ego, Razor Ramon.
Oh, gosh. He was
And one of his best matches has to be the ladder match he had with Shawn Michaels.
Hey,
I don't. Hey yo, you have to do with an accent. Hey yo.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo.
And while we're on you, Raphael, time
up
for
into this-
number
I'm
6.
gonna beat you.
Raphael, you're number 6.
number 6.
My number 6 has to be Rey Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio, baby.
Mysterio.
Puerca.
As far as his
619.
best matches, there's just so many to go through as Rey Mysterio.
He has a lot of great matches.
Hannah.
My number 6 is my favorite tag team of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, Loverboy Dennis, Beautiful Bobby, and Sweet Stan, the Midnight Express.
Oh wow! Did not see that coming.
Wow.
Ever since getting back into wrestling, I mean, I've been watching the territories a lot. Mid-South.
The old NWA.
Yeah, World Class and so on. And I simply love the tag team wrestling going on there. And my favorite tag team, without doubt, is the Midnight Express. I mean, you have 3 awesome workers with Dennis Condrey, Bobby Eaton, and Stan Lane. Not great mic workers, but for that you have the Louisville Lip, Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
And I mean, take it as you like. I love Jim Cornette. I'm definitely a Jim Cornette guy. Although his stances on a few things might be a bit controversial, but he could get so much heat with so little words. I mean, just think about the time when he debuted in WWE on the Yokozuna Lex Luger contract signing. With so little words, and everybody was booing him like crazy. But it was even crazier in the old territory days. I mean, the Midnight Express feud against the Rock and Roll Express and the Fantastics and the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, and so many others. My favorite tag team of all time, the Midnight Express.
If I could say this, actually, when I watched Great American Bash 89, they were in a great War Games match where they teamed with the Road Warriors and Dr. Death Steve Williams against the Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team, and they all beat the shit out of each other. They all beat the shit out of each other. Ricky, you're number 6.
Or the scaffolding match where Jim Cornette the ceiling of the dedication to do something like that.
Yes.
Well, my number 6, it's already been mentioned, Chris Benoit. Now, before I talk about Chris Benoit, I need to say this. I do not condone what he did. I think what he did is one of the worst things anyone can do to a human being, especially to his family. That being said, I'm not going to talk about the man. I'm going to talk about the wrestler. As a wrestler, Chris Benoit was one of the best wrestlers you can ever mention. Great technician. I mean, a grappler, a submission specialist, high flyer. You name him. Every time he was with a match with somebody, no matter how big or small they were, they would make him a bigger star, which it's credit to Benoit's name because he would wrestle. He was a short guy. I mean, he wasn't like tall as.
Is he only
like
5'10", 5'11",
Yeah,
something
he was.
like that.
He was a short guy, but boy, could he bring the pain to his opponents.
One hilarious thing he did was when he put one of Kurt Angle's Olympic medals inside his pants.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
leading
Yeah.
up to Judgment Day 01.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still remember the whole John Cena, Chris, John Cena, Paul Heyman.
Oh yeah, that
Chris?
was funny. Chris? Ah!
Yeah.
And then the soap in the mouth.
Yeah.
But my favorite match of Benoit, I mean, there's only one I can think of. It's the main event of WrestleMania 20, the Hunter
Triple
versus-
threat with Triple H and Shawn.
Yeah, that's like the only match I can think of right now. I know he had in 2003 versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship.
At
which
Royal
that was-
Rumble, that was
as a-
amazing.
That was an amazing match. The ladder match he had with
Jericho.
with Jericho. I mean, even his stuff in WCW was decent, but like I said, that
Him
WrestleMania
and Bret Hart in the Owen Hart tribute match on Nitro.
Mhm.
There's another classic.
even his ECW days when he had that classic against Dean Malenko.
Mm-hmm. Well, that WrestleMania match to me always brings out who Benoit was, and it's kind of touching at the very end to see Benoit with the world title and Eddie with the WWE Championship hugging it out in the confetti, the celebration. You know, it's kind of sad right now to think of what eventually happened later. Which, if you want more about that, you can watch Dark Side of the Ring.
That was one of the heavier episodes.
Yeah.
Alright, my number 6. It was spoiled. It is Shawn Michaels. I mean, again, another guy of what more can you say? I mean, Shawn, arguably the greatest in the ring, because he could work any style and tell a story. After all, at the end of the day, a lot of like the indie marks out there need to understand this. It's not about how good you are in the ring all the time. It's about if you can tell a story within the match. Because after all, storytelling is the bedrock of all things wrestling. If you can't tell a story, you shouldn't be in there. No matter how good you are as a technician, if you can't tell a story, get off my TV. Which is why I can't get into a lot of indie wrestling, because they all just seem to rely on work rate rather than telling a story within the match. But Shawn, no one was better than him at telling a story in a match, in my opinion. But still,
Maybe Ric Flair, but that's a whole different
yeah, maybe
story.
Ric Flair. Maybe Ric Flair would be the closest competition to him. But regardless, I mean, Shawn, Mike's skills in the beginning, not that great. He definitely got better over the years, especially in his second run in the WWE when he came back from being sober. If I had to choose a favorite match, I have to go with him and The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. I mean, that whole heaven versus hell's angle where Shawn ascends from the heavens, Taker comes out from the depths of hell, black versus white. Even though there was no real story build up to that match, it was just Shawn happened to beat Vladimir Kozlov to get a shot at Undertaker. The match at 26 was the better story. Not as great of a match, but still a classic. But Mania 25, especially the ending with Shawn doing the moonsault, Taker catching him, tombstone, booyah, there you have it. I could have also went with him and Undertaker in the first Hell in a Cell match as well, up there in the mix. I could have went with Shawn and Bret in the Iron Man match. I could have went with Shawn and Mankind from Mind Games in Your House. There's so many
a great
matches
match.
you could go for with Shawn.
Him versus Triple H, 2002.
And the Hell in a Cell match in Bad Blood 04, which I wish I could have went to because they were in Columbus for that pay-per-view.
And the 3 Stages of Hell.
At Armageddon 02, yeah. Match with Ric Flair, there's just so many. But the one that sticks out is him and Undertaker at Mania 25. Now we're into the top 5, finally, and number 5...
I did not say my number 6,
Oh.
which is going to be my Japanese contingent right now. And I have at least 8. I will not go into too many details. One we have already mentioned, but especially Raphael mentioned, the King of Strong Style, Shinsuke Nakamura. And if I have to choose a match, of course, I'll choose him versus AJ for the IC title at Wrestle Kingdom 11. I have Okada. I have the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. And if I have to choose a match, pick any of him against Kenny Omega or any of him against Hiroshi Tanahashi. This one is a name that is recognizable for old school fans. Keiji Muto, alias the Great Muta. I mean, Muta is one of my biggest inspirations, and I got a chance to see some of his old matches, him against Sting and some of the cruiserweights that existed at the time. I mean, Muta is Muta. And if I have to choose a match, him versus Jushin Liger, to the point that Jushin brings out his dark side, Kishin Liger. I have Masahiro Chono, the leader of NWO Japan. I mean, because if you want a Yakuza brought to the wrestling world, there was no one greater than Masahiro Chono. Favorite matches? I don't know. I also have the Ingobernable Tetsuya Naito, as it is called. Best match, him versus his first match against the second match against Hiroshi Tanahashi, and the last two. They're one of the reasons why I started to watch Japanese wrestling in the first place. And these two had great matches against each other. The second Tiger Mask, Mitsuharu Misawa, and his greatest rival, the guy who could chop down a tree just by chopping down constantly, Kenta Kobashi. Best match, pick any of them against both of them. Any Kobashi Misawa match. Also, one of the reasons why I have this Japanese contingent, no one has a bad theme song. Listen to any of their theme songs, they're great, especially Muta. And if you want to mention what's my number 5, excuse me while I shit my pants.
Volta.
Exactly. You said yourselves that Walter was going to be on my list, and I got to Walter thanks to Hannah's promotion, WXW. I mean, he was a trainer. He was a trainer of WXW, and I know that every time I saw Walter, I mean, it was just, oh shit, what's going on here? And if you see some of the matches that he had, whether it's against Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne, with his Ringcom stable as well, which is now Imperium, I mean, how is it possible that a big guy like him, which can be a bit related to Bruno Sammartino, has great technical skills, and the chops that he gives, woof, still, woof, woof. No, but you hear and you feel it for days. So, you knew that Walter was going to be on my list, and so he is on my number 5. That's why I said I'm going to shit myself in a moment. Favorite match of Walter? Oof, favorite match of Walter. Him against Pete Dunne is a great choice.
The one against Adam Cole, that was a great match too.
Yeah, the one against Adam Cole. But for this case, I have to go WXW. No, not WXW. I have to go Progress. Him versus Matt Riddle for the Atlas Championship. I mean, you want to talk about guys that throw hell of potatoes? Riddle and Walter. And as Brian once said, somebody called the governor of Ohio because there are some potatoes missing. So, as you said, now is Walter time. Number 5.
Alright, now on to my number 5. Both guys were spoiled early. I'm going with the Hart brothers, Bret and Owen. I mean, Bret was my brother Rue's favorite wrestler, along with Stone Cold Steve Austin, like 1A, 1B kind of thing. Bret, arguably the greatest technician in the history of the business, but he could still give you a story within. And as far as Owen, you could argue a little bit better at telling a story and much better on the mic. Like, Bret throughout his career, his mic skills were kind of so-so until he turned heel in 97, and then he started to become really good on the mic during that Hart Foundation run in 97. But with Owen, if I may recommend a single moment in Owen's career that I think defines him so good on telling a story and on the mic, watch the last 10 minutes of Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund for the title in the submission match at Survivor Series 94, where Owen looks concerned for Bulldog after he hit his head in the stairs, starts crying, and gets Stu and Helen Hart out of their seats to come and throw in the towel because he's like, I'm sorry, Bret, I didn't mean for this to happen. I don't want you to get hurt. Mom, throw the towel in. Stu wouldn't, but she couldn't take it. Throws the towel in, and then Owen grabs the towel, is running, and then he's like, this is the greatest night of my life. Oh, Bret is not the champion anymore. Mr. Backlund is. That was an Oscar-worthy performance, and it makes me think, how did Vince not see main eventer in Owen? Just from that? How?
You can blame
Montreal screw job.
But
It was a hard
regardless,
Montreal screw job.
and then as far as Bret, again, arguably the greatest technician of all time. For both, my favorite match for both, against each other, not at WrestleMania 10, at SummerSlam in the greatest cage match in the history of wrestling. And no blood. It didn't need blood. You didn't need to have blood in the match. They were able to beat the hell out of each other in a cage. Although originally it was supposed to have been a ladder match between Bret and Owen, because Bret was the one who brought in the concept. Bret was the one who brought in the Bret was the one who brought in the concept of the ladder match in the first place to Vince back in 92, and then they did the test with Bret and Shawn. And at first, Vince was never going to do a ladder match without Bret, but look what happened with that. So they ended up with a cage match, and it's the greatest cage match in the history of the business. That's not in Hell in a Cell or Elimination Chamber.
Although I still say, if they had that concept back then, do the Lions Den match, Bret versus Owen, that would have been a hell of a match.
It really would have. But yeah, those are my number 5. Bret and Owen. Henna.
What? What?
Austin.
Oh,
Austin.
I was like,
My number 4.
My number 1! You bastard.
Hey, you all mentioned my number 1 already, so I feel more murdered than you.
Yeah, it's same here. I mean, you weren't here as well.
I did not mention Kane.
Yeah, but a certain Mr. McIntyre did.
Now time to get rid of those pesky memories. Oh!
música, diablo sin música.
Come on. Then, if it's on, let's go.
Exactly. I mean,
I whacked myself in the head hard with that belt. Damn.
Whenever you
Idiot.
hear that shattered glass, you know that some crazy shit is going to happen.
Same thing when you hear Okada's coin drop. You know, oh shit, here it comes.
Yeah. I mean, Austin, from stunning Steve Austin to Stone Cold Steve Austin, what a transition. Few wrestlers have ever made such a transition like this, and once he became Stone Cold, all hell broke loose. I mean, his feud with Vince McMahon must be the most entertaining thing ever. Every moment in this feud, every episode of Raw, every pay-per-view is so worth watching. I mean, when Stone Cold hit Vince with the bedpan and everything else in between, that's like, I mean, it's a working man's dream coming true. I mean, the worker hitting the boss in the head with with a knife pen or whatever, and it's just everything about this feud is fantastic. One hell of a mic worker. I mean, wrestling wise, he's awesome. I love his stunners and every other move as well. Stone Cold, awesome wrestler, and I mean
Oh,
Oh boy,
well.
she went to get a beer.
again. And I love his podcast.
The Broken Skull sections.
Yeah. And once with the whole Stone Cold thing that I forgot to mention, which Levi brought up, the match that he had with Owen and Stone Cold, the one that with the
That broke his neck.
the botched pile driver. If it weren't for that match, Stone Cold would have been more grounded, because before that match, he was a bit more over the top rope, clotheslines and a bit. But if it weren't for that match, he would have been more grounded, which helped him in a way, because he became more of a more ruthless wrestler in the ring.
Brawler, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of his also best feud he ever had was with Booker T.
Yeah. Price tag on the jackass.
Well, I also like his matches against Bret Hart. I really enjoy those matches.
Ooh, I still remember that one. If you put the ass in front of that, it's
And I remember when all of them went to church.
Oh.
Like, daughter, I have to confess your sins. You want to confess your sins? I confess your sins. I want to whoop your ass.
if you
While
put
we're
the letter
on
S
you, while we're on you, Raphael, let's get your number 5. Raphael, you're number 5.
Well, my number 5 would be the cleaner, Kenny Omega.
Mega. Oh yeah.
One of his best Canadian fighters. And when he fought Chris in AEW, what can I say? A lot.
Ricky, you're number 5.
My number 5 is probably the one Mexican wrestler with AAA that you can say, if you mention this wrestler, he is AAA. La Parka.
Which one?
The AAA version. But here's the thing about La Parka. The original Parka, which is
LA
now named
Park today?
LA Park. He created a character back in the 80s. And then when he went to WCW, that character in AAA was missing. Like, it was the one character that a lot of people were asking was La Parka. So they brought in the current Parka, who passed away recently. They brought him in, and they just build him up to become this kind of like, if there was a Mount Rushmore of AAA, La Parka will be at the top, because with everything, I mean, you mentioned AAA, you mentioned La Parka, you mentioned El Santo, you mentioned a whole bunch of wrestlers, but always La Parka was
Macias.
there. El Macias, yeah. But also the way that his entrance, I mean, he would come up to Michael Jackson's Thriller.
That's
and he
one
would
of the things I love most about Mexican wrestling, that they have these amazing themes.
He would come up to Michael Jackson's Thriller, and then when he was in the ring, Ken Church just dun, 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 he started dancing.
There was
And,
one. there was one that was called Chessman, and he used to
Chessman.
come out to Rammstein's Firefly.
Yeah. Yeah, Chessman, yeah.
Didn't Averno and Mephisto and Hephaestus come out to Rammstein's Mindtile?
For a bit.
I think so.
For a bit, yeah. But yeah, like I said, La Parka is one of those iconic wrestlers who I saw him live. Yeah, no matter how many times I would see him live. I got to meet him. I got his autograph. And, it's one of those icons of Mexican wrestling next to El Santo and Blue Demon. It just needs to be up there at the top. Next to probably like an Eddie Guerrero.
No Conan?
Conan, Conan has his thing, but you can say the same thing about Vampiro. He was in Mexico too. Conan has his thing there. But yeah, my number 5, La Parka.
Okay.
Alright, now on to the top 4. Ricky, let's start with you for number 4.
Okay, if I'm gonna do this, I have to do this right. I lie, I cheat, and I steal. Viva la raza! It was obvious I had to put Eddie Guerrero on the list. Again, one of those Mexican wrestlers that he started in the wrestling family because of his father. Gory Guerrero was a promoter and wrestler. To his brothers, Mando, Chavo Sr., Hector, him, and then of course you got Chavo Jr., and then you got Eddie's daughter who's wrestled for a bit in a Lucha Underground, which I think that was kind of cool that she did that. But Eddie's one of those wrestlers that combine both the Mexican style of wrestling and American style of wrestling. He's was one of the most funniest, heartwarming, lovable guys that you ever see in the ring. And his skits they had with Chavo Guerrero, and the feud he had with Big Show when he made him eat so many tacos that he started shitting himself in the ring. He had to go. He had to go to the bathroom to shit because he put him like extra tapatio sauce, which didn't go well with his stomach. Eddie Guerrero was also a great technician. His matches with Mysterio were amazing. His matches with Benoit were amazing. Even with Kurt Angle, the WrestleMania 20 match was a great match. But if I had to pick my favorite Guerrero match, it would have to be an underrated one. The ladder match he had with Rob Van Dam at Raw. I think I don't know if I think it was for the Intercontinental Championship.
It was for the IC title, yeah.
Yeah, that match, and I liked because I think that was the same match that a fan jumped the barricade. I think it was that match. If I can't remember that one, but
it was.
Yeah, and I was sad when I heard the news about Eddie passing, because again, it's one of those wrestlers that you understand both from being a Texan and a Mexican. You understand the same cultures they went through, the same struggles they went through. He's a big part of why I became a big wrestling fan because of Eddie. And I still miss him every day. I miss him. Sometimes I wish I never got to see him live. That's the bad. And I wish I could have seen him.
And you know what's a big missed opportunity?
Eddie and Shawn at WrestleMania.
Well, that, but a bigger one. Originally in December 2002, we were supposed to have gotten a feud between Eddie and Stone Cold.
That would
But
have
then when Austin walked out, plans had to get scrapped.
Yeah.
And but just imagine if they had the feud, they could have made some of the best matches in the company in 2002.
And Eddie was
and promos too.
And Eddie was supposed to become world champion after Survivor Series.
Before Survivor Series.
Yeah, before. No, was before or after? I don't remember. I know
it was before.
Qualified.
It was before.
Yeah, he was supposed to be with champion, but of course he passed away. Things had to be scrapped, and they gave it to Ray, which it was a great choice. They could have done it with Chavo. I think Chavo would have been a bit better, but Ray is passable.
But anyways, my number 4 has been spoiled. It's Kurt Angle. And this is an interesting one because Kurt Angle, he arguably the one guy, the next closest person would be Ronda Rousey, to pick up on the wrestling business so quick and become so good in such a short amount of time. Like, Kurt only started in pro wrestling in 98 through Memphis Developmental and then full-time in Survivor Series 99. Within 11 months, WWF champion, having great matches with the likes of Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Undertaker, The Rock, so many, and then his career just kept going up and up after that. Even after he got released from WWE, which, by the way, I'll tell this quickly, a lot of people tend to get kind of mixed up why it was Kurt left. Like, if you watch the documentary TNA released in 2008, he'll tell you the real reason why he left. It was because he was so hurt from neck problems in 2006, and Vince was like, okay, we'll release you. Take 6 months off, come back, we'll give you the same contract we did before, no problem. But the kicker, Vince, as Kurt's walking out, Vince says, but I want you to remember one thing. An Olympic gold medal and cup of coffee doesn't mean shit. Had Vince not said that, Kurt would not have gone to TNA. If Vince had shut his mouth, Kurt would not have gone to TNA. But since he did go to TNA, and he was there longer, and I'll even argue his TNA run was better than his WWE run because he was able to get so many guys over, work with so many people that indie fans would have loved, like Joe, AJ, even dream matches with older legends like Sting, and among so many others, and help. And Kurt Angle was the litmus test, kind of like how Undertaker was the litmus test for anybody in WWE. Kurt Angle became the litmus test for anybody in TNA. Guys like Hernandez, Matt Morgan, Nigel McGuinness repackages Desmond Wolfe among so many people. Jay Lethal,
Bobby
so
Roode.
many guys. Yeah, Bobby Roode, James Storm, so many guys.
Eric Young.
Yeah. Frankie Kazarian, so many guys. But if I had to choose my favorite match of Kurt Angle, oh, Lord. There's a lot. I could go with his match with Stone Cold at SummerSlam 2001, despite a terrible finish. That was a classic.
WrestleMania 21 with Shawn.
Against Shawn. But if I had to go with one...
Even WrestleMania 20 versus Eddie.
If I had to go with one, I'm actually going to go with the match with... oh, God. This is so hard. I'll go with the match he had against Shawn at Mania 21.
Oh, yeah.
Artur.
I don't need to say anything else about my number 4 except this. Everything that was said, that needed to be said was said already. And Stone Cold matches, any of them against The Rock. But I'll prefer WrestleMania 15, the first one. WrestleMania 17 was great, although I did not like him shaking hands with Satan himself, with Vince. And the other, which was WrestleMania 19, he was already out the door, so everyone knew that he was going. But still, it was a hell of a match, but I'll stick to the first one.
Hell, even the Backlash 99 match was great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah. Of course.
What? CM Punk, I mean, when I first started getting into wrestling, the amount of heat he was getting with the straight edge society was just insane. And everything that came afterwards, up to the pipe bomb, I mean, I used to hate him so much, but I mean, I've always preferred heels over baby faces. And then CM Punk was like the big monster here, talking whatever he desired, and just insane, especially the pipe bomb and the fact that he's also an amazing wrestler. His submission techniques and everything else in between, the elbow drops and so on. For a while, I worshipped that guy. Awesome wrestler. What else is there to say? There are so many amazing matches with him. The one against Cena, the one against Taker, Rey Mysterio, his feud against Rey Mysterio and
Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, especially Jeff Hardy.
That was some epic troll that he did against Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
All right, Raphael, you're number 4.
Number 4, I have so many wrestlers I can describe. I have the Game, Triple H.
Yeah.
The Hardy Boys, one of the greatest tag teams throughout history. I have the Ultimate Warrior, Jimmy, Superfly, Snuka. But now, as far as matches wise, Triple H versus Undertaker in WrestleMania.
Which one? The first one?
17, 27, or 28.
Both of them were good. I'm not gonna lie about that. And also,
I like the 28, the Hell in a Cell. That was amazing.
If not for the Metallica entrance, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. And as far as Snuka, well, his best work ever when he jumped off the cage, barefooted, just
against Don Morocco.
Yeah.
On the cage.
Off the cage. Right
Yes, your Gorilla Monsoon. Yes, your Gorilla Monsoon. Super fly perch, 50 feet high. Oh.
As far as the Hardys, man, both of them have a lot of great, especially delete. One of the best Hardy matches I've ever seen was when they fought DK in TNA. Traveling all over Orlando, even the amusement park, and having Jeff dress as what's that guy's character's name?
Willow?
Willow the Wisp.
Willow, well, yeah, Willow was good, but also having him Itchweed. Yeah, man, on the ground.
Itchweed, yeah.
He put the pumpkin on Rosemary's face. He's like, oh, let me do. Oh, I can't save it. That was beautiful.
And while we're at it, Raphael, let's get your number 3.
Number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
San Antonio's own.
The showstopper.
The icon. The showstopper. Mr.
The main event.
Shawn Michaels, so many matches, and one of my favorite was when he broke up with Marty Jannetty as the second.
The barbershop.
Marty tried diving through the window to escape.
Yeah, he threw him out the window.
Fucking Bobby Heenan.
And also when he was with DX and Triple H, just both of them together, it's just hilarious. All the skits they did. And I remember Shawn even said when he came back after all those years, he told, "What happened to the guy that I used to come out naked with? What happened to that guy?" Or when they showed like the wrong pictures. When
found religion.
Yeah, and when they were messing with Randy Orton, he's like, "How did that picture get there? How did that get there?"
Did you? I was young. I was stupid. You told me girls bought that magazine.
Yeah, but
moving on.
And Randy's just going like, "Oh my God." But all of
Triple H and HBK, they were comedic genius.
Yeah,
They were. I almost like Shawn better. I almost like Shawn better in the newer DX because he was able to get away with being like a prudish person because it was just funny comedy, like Triple H being the perverted dude, Shawn being like the sensitive guy. Like, hey, isn't that Mr. Fuji over there? Oh, I love Mr. Fuji. Walks away and Triple H gets a guy and gets two chicks showing their tits. And then come back, Mr. Fuji's not over there.
No, one of the hilarious ones was also when Shawn Michaels just kept sweet changing music every.
Oh yeah, he first got Stan, a.k.a. Ty Dillon. See, I just kicked Stan. Don't tell me that I'm not controversial. You gotta be kidding me.
Which that was the young Ty Dillinger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean
Which is
Spears.
now Sean Spears, the chairman.
And one best hilarious was when they finally said, "Oh, we're not allowed to say curse words anymore."
The presidential speech.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Shit, fuck, goddamn.
Goddamn, Jesus Christ, faggot, or any other racial or sexual slurs. As it pertains to video, we promise there will be less dick references. Ah, shit.
Ah,
Shut your
shit.
fucking mouth. Fuck me. God damn it. Fuck.
Jeez, man.
I want to go back and watch that clip after this now.
Yeah, that.
No, that was without Shawn Michaels, the Nation skit. I mean, where they have Triple H as the Rock, Billy Gunn as the Godfather,
Road Dogg as
Road Dogg as
X-Pac as Mark Henry, and Jason Sensation as Owen Hart.
But that was a pretty darn good.
Number 3 has to be Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior.
So
Never was
now
that
to
Warrior fan.
now to my number 3. It's been spoiled by Hannah. Mick Foley, the best hardcore wrestler of all time. The guy took the most insane bumps that I couldn't believe.
The man with
And
the
on
best
top of that,
gimmicks ever.
I mean,
the 3 faces of Foley: Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love.
30. You said 30.
I said 3.
Oh, my mistake.
But yeah, Mick Foley, it's just like what he put his body through is absolutely insane. And the fact that he's still coherent after all the shit he put himself through is testament to how tough the man was. Mm-hmm. If I had to choose a favorite match, it'd be a toss-up between the Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker or the Texas Death Match against Vader at Halloween Havoc 93. Oh. Despite the terrible finish, that was one of the best matches in WCW history.
Oh no, the one that he lost the year was in Germany.
That was in Germany in 94 when that happened. In a house show.
And he got injured very badly when Undertaker chokeslammed right into a table.
He had a laundry list of injuries. Missing tooth, broken jaw, dislocated shoulder, bruised kidney, concussion, fucking everything.
Lacerations from the thumbtacks.
Yeah, and a busted lip from the chair.
Yeah.
But anyways, I forget who all has not gotten 3 in yet. I believe it's Artur and Ricky.
If Ricky wants to go first, I don't know.
All right, my number 3. Well, Raphael, you mentioned Shawn. I have to mention the King of Kings, the real assassin, the game. Time to play the game.
I did mention him in number 4.
Be more constipated.
Yeah. Triple H. Now, I want to say this about Triple H. Between his 2002 and 2005, as we call it, the Reign of Terror, I was not a fan of Triple H. I hated Triple H. I just wanted somebody to beat the living shit out of him.
I hated him as Hunter Helmsley.
But the Hunter Helmsley stuff I did enjoy a bit because it was more like a classical, like a fushy stuff. But anyway, Triple H as a wrestler, you can argue that sure he married himself into the business in a way. He married himself into the business. But you
In more
cannot
ways than
For
descri-
a few days
you cannot
before
you cannot deny the dedication that Hunter has had for the business. From starting at the very bottom in WCW, he clawed and scratched his way to eventually becoming a tag team with the back then called Steven Regal, who will become later William Regal, and that was a great tag team match. Tag team, very underrated. And then of course he jumped to WWE. He became Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and of course the curtain call happened, which went down as Push. Push was supposed to win the King of the Ring '96 that year, but thankfully Austin won the King of the Ring. But he won the King of the Ring the year after '97 and just started his career to go up and up with the DX stuff, more of his comedic side. And then you had the whole Stephanie Helmsley era, which was a script at the beginning, but then they blossomed into a real life marriage. So after that, you have this. I don't want to say tyrant because it was never a tyrant. This out-of-built guy who loved wrestling that would eventually become almost like the boss in a way, because he's the he's the COO of WWE now, which he's the next in line to run. He's the next to run WWE after Vince retires or passes. And the one thing that Triple H will be remembered now is not just his contributions to the world title and WWE title, NXT. If it weren't for Triple H, NXT would have been the same NXT we had for the first 3 seasons.
The reality show.
The reality show,
reality
which
show.
I hated. I hated
so
the
boring.
first 3 seasons of NXT. There was those challenges were meaningless. They didn't show any character development between the athletes. And I wanted NXT to be a different brand, which thankfully it did. It's now the 3rd brand of WWE, which we gotta thank Triple H for that. And also, when you have Motorhead as your theme song, come on, the great Lemmy.
To play the
And
game.
you have 3 songs of Motorhead. as
Yeah,
a theme
I mean, the game, King of Kings, and the Evolution
Line in
song.
the sand.
Yeah, Line of
That's
Sand
the
for
one. Yeah,
Revolution.
I mean, what more can you want? And with all due respect to Undertaker, who said Triple H is the most metal guy that he knows, I'm like, I have to go with Chris Jericho on that.
Yeah.
I say Stone
Triple
Cold.
H and Taker are on that list as well.
Yeah, but Triple H is like down Chris Jericho in the whole most wrestling metal, most metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, most metal matches.
Yeah, but Triple H.
Favorite
my number
match?
3. Favorite match? Ooh. That's a tough one. I mean, I want to say the Hell in a Cell between Shawn or the Hell in a Cell between Undertaker. Or maybe...
I can throw in an oddball. The ladder match with The Rock at SummerSlam '98. The best wrestling-oriented ladder match, where it wasn't all about
I got it.
spots.
I got it. The street fight between Mankind
Yes,
and the Rumble.
him and Cactus Jack. Yeah,
Yes,
Rumble
yes.
2000. Yeah,
Cactus, that match was brutal. It made more vicious person.
it made Triple H a star.
And then created
Yeah,
his own
that match
sort of
against
Cerebral
Cactus Jack at the
Assassin.
Rumble.
And made Mick Foley pedigree on thumbtacks in the eyes. I mean, I cringe every time I watch that.
And that's when Triple H fully became the Cerebral Assassin.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah, you're number 3.
Mike? Hey.
This shit is not working. Chris Jericho.
Go Judas! Go Judas!
Yeah.
Judas
Judas
in my mind.
Y2J.
Les champions.
She went French!
Been in the bubbly.
You know what? You just made the list.
We all make the list.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Jericho, the one who has managed to reinvent himself over the course of the last 3 decades, still going strong in the ring, awesome at the mic, and without, in my opinion, one of the best heels ever.
I agree.
I mean, he has had great matches throughout the last 3 decades. Who can say something like that? And then his work with Fozzy. I love Chris Jericho, and that's why he is on my number 3.
And you can never forget
when he dressed up as Super Liger.
You can never forget.
Oh, yeah.
We can never forget. He beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the
Not again.
to become
Yeah.
the first undisputed
champion.
Yeah.
Artur,
Undisputed champion. I did not say my number 3.
Go for it.
Yeah, and they said it's your turn for number 3.
Damn it! I cannot make this list without the demon of Death Valley, The Undertaker. And I just put the ministry version. I did not put the funeral march. I put
I thought you were going to have it at number 2 as well. I thought we were all going to talk about Taker at number 2. Damn it.
No, at number 2 I'm going to talk about a certain madness. Spoiler, but I mean Taker. I grew up with The Undertaker. I used to be scared of Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. I watched his entire phases. I mean, I saw the first Dead Man. I saw the Ministry of Darkness. I saw Biker Taker and gone back again to the original Dead Man. I mean, I don't know where you can find someone who has had so many changes and yet is still one of the best wrestlers of all time. He is a brawler. He's not that technical savvy, so to say, but where can you find... Okay, you can find now Lance Archer that's not doing an old school, he's doing an old school moonsault, which he ramped up to 11. But Taker, I mean, first Buried Alive match, it was with Taker. First Inferno match, it was with Taker. First Hell in a Cell, it was with Taker. Not the Elimination Chamber, unfortunately. Casket match, Taker. I mean, one of the most memorable things, and I still remember this with my father, was during his feud with the Ortons, Randy and Cowboy Bob Orton. They were performing. My father was watching this with me. They were performing a eulogy of The Undertaker, thinking that it was a wax figure that was inside. I think this was 2005.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we see the eye moving. We're thinking, we know that's not... And then when Randy goes close to Taker, he just grabs his neck, rolls his eyes, and then proceeds... My father and I were scared, both of them, for that. And Taker remained to this day one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Best Taker? Sorry?
No, one of the most hilarious things I ever seen Taker do was when he put a fake Diesel inside the the coffin.
Oh, the wax Diesel figure in the casket. That was creepy.
But favorite Taker match? Oof, so many. Not all of them technical masterpieces, but I'll go with the more obvious one. Taker versus versus Mankind, Hell in a Cell in Pennsylvania, where he threw Mick Foley out of the cell to the announcer's table. He threw him through the roof, and still he could not kill, so to say, Mick Foley.
He couldn't take him down. Mick Foley
he never could take him down.
Pain and nothing.
No.
Nothing took him down.
Well, now we're into the top 2. Now we're into the top 2. We kind of need to get through this a little bit quickly because I'm running out of time because I gotta get to work soon and shower. But, well, I guess it's time for us all to give our thoughts on Undertaker because he seemed to be the obvious choice for number 2 or so on. For me,
He's one of my numbers.
Yeah, same thing with me. I grew up, I was scared of The Undertaker. And it's amazing to think how much he's constantly reinvented himself to the point where right now, after WrestleMania 36, he's more of a hybrid of Deadman and Biker Taker, which is interesting. But yeah, my favorite match, there's a lot of them you can really go for. But my personal favorite for The Undertaker would have to be...
On that match against AJ Styles, him going out with Here Comes Revenge by Metallica, that was a cool... I was never expecting that he would exit with Here Comes Revenge by Metallica.
My favorite match probably would be him and Shawn at Mania 25. So there you go. Hannah.
Well, I simply love the character and the fact that he could keep that gimmick alive for 30 years and still going strong to a certain degree. And I mean, he could do things other big men could not do. He could dive over the top rope and pull off crazy stunts. When he fell off the ladder against Edge, what was it that?
Yeah,
crashing through some tables and some crazy shit. My favorite Taker matches probably the Hell in a Cell against Shawn Michaels. Also the Hell in a Cell against Mankind, and then the two matches against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 and 26. I mean, I don't know how often I've rewatched those matches. Perfect wrestling storytelling. Amazing.
Raphael.
Well, number 2 is Undertaker, but I also have Stone Cold. You can't have a wrestling list without Stone Cold. But if I have to mention one great wrestler, as far as now, even though he was there in the beginning, and no, I'm not talking about his gimmick, which is Dean Ambrose. I'm talking about Jon Moxley.
Ooh.
Jon Moxley, when he first started, he looked ridiculous. He had pink long hair, and then he decided to go as Dean Ambrose. But when he came back as Jon Moxley in AEW, baddest man on the planet.
The Death Rider in New Japan as well.
Yeah. And then I find it hilarious. What's the name of that Japanese fighter that we talk about so much?
Okada?
No, not Okada. I remember
Suzuki.
Jon Moxley had an eye patch. I think it was
Suzuki.
Masuki, yeah. He had an eye patch, and he just comes and starts trying to beat up Masuki. What are you doing, man? You're gonna get destroyed if you fight that guy.
That's why we call him Murder Daddy. He is known as Murder Daddy.
Of course. And he used to be also an MMA fighter. But another great wrestler I have to mention, as far as the number 2, the Ticking Time Bomb.
Oh, Brian Pillman. Oh, wait, what?
Hiromu Takahashi, the Ticking Time Bomb.
Oh.
Who's now
If you watch a wrestler that always comes out with stuffed cats, that's him.
Yeah.
Daryl.
And also one guy that ripped off Rey Mysterio's first entrance when he jumped off the he came out of the floor and jumped off in the air.
Off a platform, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Artur.
His greatest matches was, I believe,
him versus Will Ospreay.
Yeah, Will Ospreay was okay. All right, Artur.
Yeah, Artur, you're number 2.
I'm going to show you one of 2 reasons why I am not a Hulk Hogan fan. Never was, never will be. I'm a Macho Man guy. Macho Man Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah. From Sarasota, Florida. Too sweet. I'm the cream of the crop. Elizabeth, the stars align. I mean,
yeah.
Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, I am not a Hulk Hogan guy because of him and because of my number one, which has been spoiled by everyone. But Macho Man, he had technique. He could be a high flyer. His voice is one of the more recognizable voices in all of professional wrestling. I mean, his endorsements as well. Which one of you hasn't eaten Slim Jim? All of it. Which one of you hasn't eaten Slim Jim?
And one of the best entrance clothes I've ever seen in my life.
But Macho Man Randy Savage, he was great. He was GOAT-like ability. And still to this day, I mean, even CM Punk adopted this famous elbow drop when he puts the fingers in the air and then slams down the elbow. That's why Macho Man is it's number 2 on my list, but is Macho Man Randy Savage, the madness is going wild. Ooh yeah.
If Randy Savage was still alive, they should put him as Bonesaw.
We just talked about it.
Yeah, and then we should just have Tobey Maguire come dressed as Spider Ninja or Spider-Man and just like, "What are you doing up there? Stay away from you." That's a nice outfit. Did your husband make it for you?
And then Artur, favorite match?
Him versus Steamboat. Him versus Steamboat WrestleMania 3 for the IC title. Although his match against Hulk Hogan is also 5. Is also right there. The Mega Power is exploding.
Ricky.
Ah, damn you, Artur. Damn you.
I know.
I'm gonna. My number 2, we've talked about him, is Shawn Michaels. And I'm gonna also mention Undertaker. He's my number 1. So I'm gonna mention both of them. Shawn Michaels, you can say whatever you want about Shawn. He's probably one of the best in-ring performers story-wise. He could deliver motion. He could do so much stuff that you felt it. I mean, I think one of the matches that I always think of is the Kurt Angle match at WrestleMania 21. When Kurt Angle has him in the freaking ankle lock, you can feel Shawn's pain in his face that he's like at the breaking up, tapping out. Even the match we had with Cena at WrestleMania 23 was also a great storytelling because the emotion. You can even say the thing about Ric Flair at the WrestleMania 24 match. Shawn is one of those performers that will only come once in a lifetime that deserves the respect that he deserves a lot. He deserves that much.
And the closest one to Shawn right now is AJ, I would say.
Yeah, AJ's a pin there.
Daniel Bryan, maybe?
Shawn did train him.
I see Daniel Bryan more of a Chris Benoit, to be honest.
Okay.
That's what I always think of.
That I do agree with.
Yeah. And, well, that with Shawn. Now, with number 1, I was so close. It's The Undertaker. It had to be The Undertaker. When I started watching WWE, The Undertaker was the first person that popped in my TV. That whole character, the Dead Man, Paul Bearer, the Earth, the Druids, everything about it, I loved it. And to think that he broke character as much as almost 3 years ago, if you've seen the Undertaker, the documentary on the WWE Network, that was the first time one of the couple of times he broke character fully, because before that he would play the character because he never broke character. He was one of those guys that still had the code of kayfabe, keep it kayfabe. Even when he did interviews in the 90s, he was wearing all black and and all that. The only time he broke
the voice.
Yeah, even when he was Biker Taker.
The only time he could get away with it. Yeah, the only time he broke character, to my recollection, before the documentary and all this stuff is coming out, when Ric Flair retired.
Oh yeah,
when he came out and hugged Ric Flair and
Now
although I did love that interview that he gave ESPN talking about the Montreal screw job. Even
I need to watch that at some point.
Yeah, I just love everything about The Undertaker. Mark Calloway has created this character that when he finally retires, which we don't know when he will retire, that character will stay on forever.
And
Yeah.
and even how many characters have we seen that have this affectuation for the dark arts, Undertaker like, and they will never reach
Since
his
then.
status.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
Aleister
Since
Black.
then,
Try all you want,
Yeah,
so
Aleister
no one
Black,
can do
Bray Wyatt, Crow Sting,
Mm-hmm.
Or-
Yeah.
Raven
Baron
to some
Corbin
degree.
Yeah.
Baron Corbin
And-
to a certain extent.
And
More on the biker side. More on the
Yeah,
biker
and-
side.
Yeah.
And the thing
Or
that
Mordecai tried that as well.
and the thing that captivated me about the Undertaker was the streak. That
Yes.
streak was
Yeah,
something
his
that
streak of WrestleMania.
Damn
That-
you, Brock Lesnar! Damn you!
damn you,
funny
Brock
story about
Lesnar.
And I was there for when that happened, and it
I
still
still
hasn't sunk in.
say to this day, Brock Lesnar, it should have not been him. It should have been somebody else. But knowing the circumstances back then, I understand why they did it.
You want to know
But
interesting?
regardless,
It was
if
supposed
you
to
were
be
like-
Randy Orton. That was supposed
yeah.
to be.
So
Undertaker.
supposedly
A few different guys were penciled in to end the streak. Randy Orton was
Oh
the
yeah,
first.
Randy.
Kurt
Edge.
Angle was
Randy
rumored.
was caught.
Mark Henry.
Yeah.
Edge.
Wade Barrett.
yeah.
Sting.
Edge was supposed to be the one who ended the streak.
Now there's the dream match that should have happened. Sting versus Undertaker.
But
Yeah.
but favorite match between Shawn and Taker has to be the WrestleMania 25 match. You got two Texans fighting in Texas ground, in Houston, Texas, in the Toyota Center. Shawn from San Antonio, Taker from Austin. It's the match.
Houston.
It's a match
He's
of
from
the century.
He was in Houston, but now he's in Austin.
Okay.
Both, yeah, the match made in heaven and hell. Shawn represented the lightness, Taker the darkness, and like Levi said, there was not that much build up for the first match, but regardless, they made it in the ring. That story made its own, and is regarded as probably the greatest WrestleMania match ever. Next to you got. That's why I said it's regarded. I know we could talk about greatest WrestleMania matches. I personally think that's my
Top three.
top 5 WrestleMania matches. And then you got the next match, you got the Streak versus Korea, which they build up the story into a more elaborate story with Shawn's retirement, and you got Triple H involved. Those 4 WrestleManias were the perfect story, and I think, in my opinion,
Taker versus DX.
Taker should have retired after 20
After 28.
That should have been it. But
Yeah.
but you know,
Because you couldn't top it, and it was a great
No.
moment.
yeah,
You
but,
just
Shows
couldn't
he
do
has
it.
the love of the sports. He
yeah,
just loves wrestling.
Yeah,
You can't
but-
live without it.
yeah. So yeah, my number 1, The Undertaker.
Artur.
The reason why I'm not a Hulk Hogan guy.
The nature boy. Rick
Jet flying,
Because I am the kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine
what-
riding,
what
jet
is it?
flying.
Woo!
Woo!
Crazy
Really
son
stealing.
of a bitch,
No.
son of a gun.
Because I am nature boy Ric Flair, jet flying,
Nature boy.
limousine riding, jet flying, cash stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard
Space
time
Mountain.
holding these alligators on. I mean, Ric Flair, the 26-time world champion, however you want to say it. He is more than 16 times, yes. I mean, Ric Flair had everything. He could wrestle. He could do some high flying stuff in the early stages. But after
and
his
he was a dirty player.
infamous- dirtiest player in the game, exactly.
Yeah.
But after his infamous incident with the plane, he had to change. So he became a more technical, a more submission style with the figure 4 leg lock. Yeah, we know that he ripped off a lot from Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, and also from Gorgeous George as well. But God damn it, he's Ric Flair. He not only is the master of the figure 4 leg lock, the limousine riding and blah blah blah, but also he could style and profile in a way that no one to this day still does. The closest people that I can see that style and profile nearly as well as Ric Flair were Muhammad Ali and Conor McGregor. So that's why Ric Flair is my number one.
And also
the reason why I'm not a Hulk Hogan guy, it's because he was boring. The only time that I started to get to Hulk Hogan was when he became Hollywood Hulk Hogan in the NWO. I could not get it. I could not get him otherwise. Hulkamania, I was more of a madness guy.
Yeah.
And favorite Ric Flair match?
Oh shit! I mean,
There's a
I
lot.
could say, yeah, there's a lot. I could say him against Sting, him the classics against Steamboat. So many of them. Even the supposedly retirement match against Shawn Michaels, but
the Bret Hart match.
I'll go Flair and Steamboat. The final match. But
From Spring Stampede '94.
Yeah, he was the one that, just like Kurt Angle, he could wrestle a broom and still have a 4-star, 5-star match, however you want to call it. Just like Kurt Angle, he could do it. So that Ric Flair for my number one.
All right, Raphael.
What is there to say from the greatest, the great one? The pie eating.
The Rock!
Oh, boy.
What the Rock is cooking.
The Rock. Oh, come on, he's a Floridan. He's a Floridan, so it had to.
He had to. And it says in his name, the Great One. The most electrifying man. The Rock.
Although I'm sure that it's not on Hannah's list, but although if we put an honorable mention together, I'd just like to propose this honorable mention together to. Let me tell you something. I'm going on a list, you know what I mean. The American Dream,
Dusty,
Dusty Rhodes, baby.
Oh, Dusty
How could we
Rhodes,
forget
rest in
Dusty?
peace.
No. I'll put it an honorable to get a collective honorable mention. Dusty Rhodes, baby.
And we'll put his two sons as honorable mentions as well.
Okay.
Gus.
I think Hannah is missing.
Yeah. Well, as far as my
Hannah,
match
you're
with
number one.
Rock,
Oh yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Race match was when he fought Stone Cold. His
Which
debut
one?
match as Rocky Mania. And who else?
Rocky Maivia Survivor Series '96.
Yeah, Rocky
huh?
Mania. He even saw his reaction. He's like, "That hair, though."
Yeah, thank God he ditched that
Pineapple
hair.
hair.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Hannah.
my number one is, without doubt, the greatest debut of all time, the Shockmaster.
Man,
Who is this
Yeah,
motherfucker?
bunch of
He
idiots
fell on his ass.
you.
He fell flat on his fucking ass. Oh God.
Let me
it's
stand.
gotta be the Shockmaster.
Sorry, that certainly was a mistake. That's gotta be Kane.
Of course.
Of course.
Might be a bit of a weird choice because there are so many other great ones, but for me, Kane, he has the greatest debut, one of the best developed characters in WWE. I love characters, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy wrestling so much. And Kane, I mean, the little brother of the Undertaker, scarred in a fire,
Allegedly.
behind a mask, and then I mean he just pops in at in your house bed blood, rips the door of the Hell in a Cell cage, and tombstones his big brother, and then the feud that followed till WrestleMania. I mean, it's one of the best feuds ever, and Glenn Jacobs, in my opinion, has always portrayed Kane greatly.
Perfectly.
perfectly.
No,
I mean,
he
when
is Kane.
Kane couldn't speak, and then when Kane slowly started to speak, and even after he lost the mask, in my opinion, the greatest Kane years are from debut in your house, Bad Blood, till his shoulder injury in 2002. I mean, he was a beast. Look at his arms during that time, and so on. And then the stuff he could do. I mean, he could lift the Big Show easily, perform a Hurricane Runner on A Train, dive over the top rope, perform planchas, and do all sorts of crazy gimmick matches. He could do everything. I mean, the only problem with Kane is that WWE underutilized him. He has been in the worst storylines ever. He could have been
That's true.
a multi-time world champion if it hadn't been for Triple H, The Rock, Stone Cold, The Undertaker, and all
Katie
the
Vick.
main eventers. They could have done crazy shit with him, but sadly they didn't. Still, I love Kane, especially the early years, but also Team Hell No and his feud with Taker and Edge 2010, 2011. Probably my favorite Kane match is the Hell in a Cell against Mankind, and his WrestleMania matches against Taker. But also the Money in the Bank that he won in 2010 or 2011.
2010.
I simply love Money in the Bank. My favorite gimmick match alongside TLC. Well, Kane. That's gotta be Kane.
And if I might add something about Kane and the Big Show, they were one of the best. They were one of the, not the best, but in terms of chemistry, there was no bigger chemistry than Kane and the Big Show. I was so mad when they lost to the Spirit Squad. I was so mad because Kane and the Big Show was a team that I thought that they were going to have at least a year-long reign, not lose to a bunch of cheerleaders. I was so pissed back then.
And now, my number one was spoiled really early. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the reason I got into wrestling. He's the reason I got into wrestling from when I saw him beat Shawn Michaels for the title at Mania 14. One of the best in the ring, one of the best on the mic. The guy could do it all and is arguably the biggest
Levi,
name in the history of the business.
Sorry about that. I just have to cut in a bit early. So I just, if I cannot, I'll just say goodbye to everyone. See you again soon. See ya.
All right, see you, Artur.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Austin, arguably the biggest name in the history of the business, even over Hulk Hogan. Like he was able to draw more with ratings and such than Hogan ever did. Favorite match? There can only be one, and in my opinion, the greatest match in the history of the business. Stone Cold versus Bret Hart, WrestleMania 13. You had everything. Technical wrestling, storytelling, brawling, blood. It was just brilliant, and it launched Stone Cold as a babyface. The classic double turn. Bret turns heel, Austin turns face, and off to the races we went.
Which is funny about the WrestleMania 13 match. Stone Cold's not a submissionist.
The closest submission he had was the $1 Million Dream that he adopted from Ted DiBiase when he was the ringmaster.
Yeah, and he found out, I think it was on his days off or something.
A couple of weeks before, while he was at home, And
he was like, what?
But,
submissionist?
Yeah. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this episode. Wow, this went long, and I'm almost out of time. I need to get to work soon. So, thank you guys for watching episode 35 of the Horsemen podcast. We will be back in a few weeks for live Q&A number 3 with a new computer, new everything. It's going to be amazing. But until then, horns high, and we'll see you soon. I don't want to do this, but I have no other option.
No! Please! Is it what
I feel like I'm about to commit the biggest genocide of all time on this show.
Wait,
My number 7, number 7, Behemoth the Satanist.
No! 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 Are you serious?
now Hannah's going to hide in the shadows.
Damn you!
Everybody
Why?
dies.
Why?